It's time for Twit. This Week in Tech, a great panel ahead for you. Abrar Al-Hiti is here. So is Daniel Rubino from Windows Central, our attorney, Kathy Gellis. We will talk, of course, about legal action, but we're also going to talk a lot about AI. According to the Wall Street Journal, the hottest AI job of last year is obsolete this year. Mark Zuckerberg says social media is over. And an electric pickup truck you can pick up for just $20,000. Radio not included. All that and more coming up next on Twit.
Podcasts you love.
From people you trust.
This is Twit.
This is Twit. This Week in Tech, episode 1029, recorded Sunday, April 27th, 2025. Never lick a badger twice. It's time for Twit, This Week in Tech, the show we get together and talk about the latest tech news with my favorite people. Today, Kathy Gellis is in the house. She writes for Tech Dirk. She is an attorney at law specializing in all of the issues in front of us these days. Kathy, it's great to see you. Welcome.
Thanks for having me.
Yeah. Your hair's growing back nicely. I like the curls. Were you that curly before?
I don't think so. I feel definitely more poodly than I used to.
The poodly, Kathy Gellis. Also here, Daniel Rubino, editor-in-chief at Windows Central. Hello, Daniel. Good to see you.
Thanks for having me.
Welcome back.
To see everyone here.
Yay.
Thank you.
And Abrar Al-Hiti, who's doing double duty. She hosted Tech News Weekly this week.
Hello. How
now
are you?
senior technology reporter.
That's right. I'm honored for both to have been on, your program twice. And,
you're just a superstar. You're a superstar, Abrar.
Kind. I'm going to record that and play that whenever I feel down.
Make it a
oh
ringtone.
boy, there's a lot of news this week. Google's in the news. They had a good quarter. Mark Zuckerberg's on trial. He says social media is over. Apple is, saying we're moving to India. But let's start with the Wall Street Journal, which says the hottest AI job of 2023 is already obsolete. Oh no, I was learning to be a prompt engineer. And now those AIs, they're too smart. They don't need me anymore. I love these. I don't know why the Journal does these. It's like, this is the new lifestyle piece, isn't it? Prompt engineering jobs, once buzzy and high paying, are becoming obsolete due to AI advancements. You know why? Apparently, the AI model, according to the Wall Street Journal, now intuits your intent, negating the need for specialized prompt engineers.
Yeah, it seemed pretty weird to have, I understood early on the prompt engineering stuff because people were creating, especially with the images, they would get very specific on the type of lens being used, the type of film to simulate. So I kind of understood that. But you would think that over time, the AI would get smart enough where just kind of really figure out what you mean.
Well, it also has enough inputs from enough. It's talked to enough people now. It kind of knows what people want.
On this weekend's Wait, Don't Tell Me, they were talking about being polite to your AI and
cost money.
Yeah, and then they were talking about how it uses up resources and we can make Sam Altman pay for it if we are really polite to our
that's
AI.
so mean. That's like, let's make it more expensive.
Well, yes, but then it was also pointed out, and I think the joke was apologizing and there goes one rainforest and stuff. So
right.
Yeah.
Actually, the Economic Times had a piece. Should we start taking the welfare of AI seriously?
Oh.
No.
Yeah, pretty much.
This is I should give credit to the author. Where is the author's name? I don't see it anywhere. But the author writes in the first person, so I'm sure it's somebody. Maybe it's an AI. Apparently, the author heard that researchers at Anthropic, the makers of Claude, were starting to study, quote, model welfare, end quote. The idea that an AI might soon become conscious and deserve some kind of moral status.
I mean, yes, eventually, but this isn't, we haven't invented Mr. Data yet. Like, if all of a sudden we do spawn artificial intelligence where there's sentience and signs of life and things like that, then yeah, okay, we build in the ethics for how we deal with that. But at the moment, we're just dealing with fancy software, and you don't have to be polite to your basic program as it goes through the command. So you shouldn't have to be here. That's not what it is, and that's not what it's for. And if we convince ourselves that the more we think and that AI is already in true artificial intelligence, I think the more trouble we create for ourselves, because we end up relying upon it for things that it just can't deliver on.
Yeah.
I just get really bothered by this. Everybody throws consciousness around, just like
we even know what that is.
Achieves consciousness. Yeah, we don't know what it is. We don't know how to define it. We don't know how to measure it. Is it on the spectrum? At what point does it actually become conscious? Like we just don't know. What will happen is the AI will get so good, it'll act like a person, and we'll get tricked.
I think we're at that point, actually. Don't you?
I mean, when people are saying thank you and please, that was a joke, right? And it's costing a lot of money to do the processing, right? People are already getting to that stage where it feels like you're talking to someone, and that will just continue to increase. But I mean, they should build into these models. I get the idea too. You might want to be friendly to the AI, not because it's going to try to kill you, but because like you may be able to affect its behavior, just like if it was another being, right? If you're always abusive to it, it might be mean back to you. But that should be something they could program around. But they need to figure out how this stuff works in the first place. So I don't know.
I think this comes along with the same people who are concerned about AI being an existential threat to humanity. Like, we better be nice to it, or it could come and get us. As the author ends up saying, she cares more about carbon-based life forms. In fact, if AI gets smarter, we might even want to care more. Microsoft has finally pushed recall out into Windows 11, so more people are going to now see AI. Well, maybe not, because it's just Copilot plus PCs, right?
Correct.
Yeah. So is that Daniel, a limited number of people? I mean, how well are those selling?
So, getting to like the whole shipments and everything like that, we are seeing positive growth in the industry. Is it a lot?
What?
Probably
really?
Not.
God,
yeah.
It's been years of just kind of downward spiraling.
Yeah, I think there's a lot of potential here now that there are some like legit features. Actually, I would say like click to do is actually more interesting almost than recall.
What's that?
So click to do is sort of like Google Vision and Circle to Search, but it's built into your PC and it's built into the snipping tool too. So you can basically point it anywhere on your computer or at the screen and basically inquire what is on your screen and ask for more information. You can copy text. You can do things like if you're on the web and you find an image, say if it's a person, you can like right click on the image with click to do, and then it'll take just the cut out the background and just keep the silhouette of the person, and then you can just copy and paste that to another image. Like, it really makes manipulation of data on the computer like to a whole new level, where before you'd almost need some more sophisticated skills.
Is Microsoft doing agentic AI yet, where like it's it controls the browser and it goes out and does stuff for you? Is that here?
They're getting there. So they did announce something similar to that. For one, they're going to be delivering avatars pretty soon, which would be user choice, and they'll have a pre-selected bunch. But in fact,
what do you mean? Like Copilot will have a face?
Yes.
Oh wow!
It'll be whatever you want. At first, they'll go and give you like a pre-selected bunch just to get it out there. But eventually, they're going to use the power of generative AI, so you could just tell it what you want the avatar to be, and it'll generate it for you. I told them they should allow it so you can upload photos of like friends, family, or animals. I'd love to make my dog not AI, right?
Yeah.
So
that's a good idea, actually.
Yeah, so they're going to that stage, and it is now going to that next level, right? Beyond generative chat stuff, where it's going to start to actually proactively do things. I think a lot of this will have to come when they build it deeper into the operating system, which they're also working on. But yeah, we're getting there into stages. But recall, I don't use it a ton, but what's cool about it is you don't even notice it's running. Like, it's just there, and when you bring it up, it's a beautiful looking app. Like, they really did a great job of designing it, and it functions well. There's no hiccups with it. It's really kind of remarkable technology. The only thing that's weird about it is, yeah, you need a new PC, preferably an Intel one or AMD or Qualcomm that qualifies with the NPU. But something like my Core i9 desktop I'm on right now with a 4080 GPU doesn't have this. So it's like, it's weird that my laptop has it, but my super powerful desktop.
It's more powerful, but it's not a Copilot Plus PC.
Yeah.
It doesn't have a Copilot button on the keyboard. So
yeah. So will they bring it to PC, desktop PCs? I don't know. Yeah, I assume so.
It's pretty controversial. I mean, it's funny. On the one hand, it doesn't do as much as I would want it to do. On the other hand, it does way more than security people want it to do. It records everything that's going on, does screenshots, and analyzes it with a variety of AI models. And then it's queryable. It's a queryable database. So you can say, hey, on Thursday, I was looking at a website for razor blades. What was that? And it will be able to answer that question.
Can this be turned off?
Yeah, it has to be turned on.
Okay,
fact,
so it's
opt-in.
off by it's opt-in. Okay,
Yes.
because this is not compliant with anything that lawyers use Windows-based technology to do. You cannot have an AI
Not just
slurp
lawyers,
up what is going
doctors.
on.
Yeah, there's a lot of
anybody
people,
who's got duties
tax
of
preparers.
It is locally processed. So this doesn't go to the cloud. It uses the NPU and it's on an enclave encrypted on the chip itself. And only the user who owns the computer via.
Would that make it okay,
facial
Kathy, for a
recognition.
lawyer?
I mean, it helps, but I think the overarching concern I have is how little control I feel like I have over my data these days, because like I can't even figure out OneDrive. It keeps slurping up things I didn't need
OneDrive's
for it to
pretty
slurp,
nasty,
and it doesn't. It's some of the stuff is in the cloud, some of the stuff is not. It's very confusing. This makes me really, really uncomfortable because I have ethical duties. Plus, I want to keep my own stuff private, and I'm having a difficult time controlling what goes where. I've got some ethical obligations to know how my technology works and control this data. And I'm not, I'm reasonably with it, and I am feeling like I'm completely at the mercy of this technology, and I'm not going to be able to meet my ethical duties. This is a problem. I think that I think it's a bigger problem than just this. The sense of loss of control that I'm having over so much of my technology, but particularly with what is where, is really alarming. And I kind of don't. AI is not interesting to me until we solve, do I get control back over my tools? Then when I have the control over my tools, then I'm much more on board with using all this fancy stuff that can do all these cool things. But we're leaping over a really important step, and we're compromising how much we need that important step to actually be taken care of first.
That was one of the original complaints, was it was on by default, and Microsoft responded by turning it off by default, which I think is
I don't even think it's
But that's what I was saying is that's one side of the argument. People say, oh my God. The other side of the argument, people like me who want more AI say, yeah, but it's only on one machine. I want it to be really useful.
Right.
Recall would be capturing everything I do everywhere.
Across machines. Yeah, actually, Zach Bowden and I were talking about that on the podcast. He wants it like that too. So if I'm on my desktop, but I was doing something on my laptop, I can recall the information from there. That may come down the road. I will say, to address what Kathy was talking about, this has been delayed for almost a year because of these concerns. So they went back to the drawing board. How it works is, like, when you get the feature on the PC or you're getting for the first time, it gives you a white screen and it clearly walks you through what it is, where the information is. Then you can either enable it or don't. Even if it's enabled, it just sits there in the taskbar and you can right click and pause it and turn it off. And so if you're in a session, you don't want it to record anything, you can do that as well. You can also tell it specific apps you don't want it to save. In
theory, it's not going to keep track of your credit card numbers when you buy something.
Right. It blocks out credit card information, social security numbers, all that. All that information is automatically blocked from it. So they do give the user a ton of control. To me, it's very obvious what it's doing, how to turn it off. It's very easy to use. It's very fast too. But yeah, I mean, it's one of those things people can easily just turn it off just like anything else in Windows and never think about it again. But I think they did a really good job with, like I said, all the data is local, stays on that PC. You can't take it anywhere. It's encrypted. It uses, when you even launch the app, it uses facial recognition before it even shows you anything, right? So
It has to use Windows Hello to unlock it. That's one of the reasons you need a Copilot plus PC.
Right. True.
That's a separate issue. Facial recognition on your devices is a Fourth and Fifth Amendment disaster. So I would never recommend that anybody actually.
Do you use a fingerprint reader?
Absolutely not.
Okay.
No, because
so you only use a PIN.
Something where you have to enter information, because
otherwise
this is the way it should be, but the constitutional case law at the moment is the way they're analyzing it is that action of entering data is constitutionally regarded as something different than using your biometric. Yeah,
something in your brain is different than something that you are.
I mean, I don't think that really works in terms of what the Fourth and Fifth Amendments are supposed to protect, but at the moment, that's the state of the case law. So,
hey, I'm glad they're at least doing that. I mean, there was in some jurisdictions, they say, "Oh, we can compel you to give us your password."
I'm not entirely comfortable with the state of the law, even in those more protective things. But at the moment, there is a schism. You are more likely, depending on whose jurisdiction is reaching you, to have protection if you enter that information than if it's your essence is all of a sudden
if
something
you're crossing
that
the
now
border,
is going to open these things.
All bets
and now
are
crossing
off.
the border
ICE gets to do whatever they want, right?
Yeah, I mean, this is no way to run a railroad, and we've got bigger issues here. But given the state of the law, biometrics are just don't.
This is an interesting point we are at right now with AI, where there's people like you, Kathy, who say, no, never, not on my watch. There's people like me who say, I want more. I don't think AI can do everything I want it to do unless it has everything that I'm doing. Now, I admit that people like you, Kathy, probably think I'm nuts because I'm giving bad guys and or the government, access to everything everywhere.
I'm not necessarily against your camp, but I'm also not in the camp that you
want the choice. I think you want the choice. I understand that. I'm
kind of in the middle ground. Like, I'm not in the camp that is no AI ever, and that's a very strong camp full of some really vehement opinions. I'm not in your camp where, you're seeing the promise and the potential and willing to go along for the ride because this is kind of cool and exciting.
Where do you sit? Where do you sit on all this?
I tend to lean more towards the cautious end, but only because I have a personal bias as a writer where I'm scared that AI is going to replace all of us.
Take your job.
Yeah. So I tend to be a little bit more cautious about that. And I also just, I don't personally tend to have a need for it in my everyday life. So that's why I think if it makes your life easier and more helpful, I think it's easier to be like, oh, this is great. But I personally haven't found a reason to really tap into most of those tools.
I would submit that probably nobody needs AI.
It's true.
That is quite the Leo concession, but
I know.
No, but you might want it. Nobody needs a smartphone either. Nobody needs an iPod either.
Yeah, there was a period where I had to try to convince my friends that smartphones were going to be a big thing and that they're going to want one. They're like, come on. If I need to email someone, I'll just wait till I get home. Why do I need to do it on my phone? There's a period where a lot of people didn't have a PC, right? So
I don't need the internet in the palm of my hand. What are you, crazy?
Right. Yeah, it does make sense. I will say, I do get the caution and all that, and that's fine. Like I always say, we need these discussions. They need to be public. We need to be upfront with these companies about what we want, where we want to control our data. At the same time, this is inevitable. Like it's just going to happen. So
Darren Oki, who is an AI advocate in our Club Twit Discord, said nobody needs the wheel either, Leo. It's not a bad point. Not a bad point.
I think the argument of who needs the wheel is there's more people than who necessarily needs AI. Yeah. But I would.
You don't need a car. You don't need a bicycle. You could walk everywhere.
I mean, physical levers. We don't need a lever. We can just hold the thing.
But that's, I think, his point, which is that AI is a lever, right?
So I think the thing that frustrates me the most with AI is the giant disconnect between a lot of the, excluding you, Leo, but between a lot of the advocates for it and the people who are dead set against it. The dead set against it are missing that there's some really cool things that it can do. It's a helpful tool. And I think a lot of the zealots are also missing what the actual concerns are. I just want to knock everybody's heads together because I want to get the good without getting the bad. And I'm just watching everybody talk past each other because I'm not fond with how this is all getting developed and rolled out. I am on team control. I want to have a lot more control over my devices, my data, my technology. With that in mind, I then want to go choose to use some of the cool things that AI can do because that will be useful to me. But right now, and I think this is also what a lot of the dead againsters are saying, is we're feeling ruled by technology. We can feel ourselves losing control. We can feel ourselves sort of, people are pushing this on us without adequately regarding all the downsides that may be happening and controlling for them. And that's a problem. And that's also bad for the people who want to make AI and profit from AI. It's a dumb way to develop because all it's doing is antagonizing the public.
We haven't even mentioned the fact that, although you kind of referred to it at the beginning, it burns down rainforests at every turn. Actually, you had a story I thought was kind of interesting in Windows Central. Sam Altman says OpenAI is no longer compute constrained. It's not struggling with computing power? I don't understand, Daniel. I thought that was the big constraint.
Yeah, well, Microsoft was the exclusive provider for the training of their systems.
So he says we don't have to get it from Microsoft anymore, is what he's saying.
Yeah, basically they were saying they needed even more power, and Microsoft wasn't able to meet that. So they had to go out to other companies and request even more power. This is, what we're seeing in real time is the slow breakup of OpenAI and Microsoft. And because OpenAI is increasingly sees that it has a very bright future on its own, they're looking to making hardware with Johnny Ives.
They're going to make a device, like the R1 or the Humane Pin or something, an AI hardware. Like, I think the thought is, well, the smartphone's time has come. Now we're going to make an AI smartphone kind of thing.
Something. I'm a little skeptical of it, but we'll see some smart people doing that. But they're also looking to, of course, doing their own social network. They said in a court case this week.
Is that real, do you think?
I think internally they're messing around with that. And they said in a court case this week that given the opportunity, they would buy Google Chrome and make it an AI browser around OpenAI. So they're seeing, they're going from the whole we're not a profit, to, we're going to turn into a massive corporation and make a ton of money. And then you have Microsoft, who doesn't want to be tied to someone else's AI, right? So Microsoft is developing their own, going down their own route.
They have their own models.
And so and they'll continue to go down that route. And you see these companies split off eventually.
It's funny because the speculation for Apple, we talked about this on Tuesday on MacBreak Weekly, is that they need to do the opposite. They need to stop relying on their own models. It's not going well. They need help. They need to go to Anthropic and OpenAI and everybody else and say, you guys do the AI. I don't know if Apple will do that because of privacy concerns. Apple's kind of between a rock and a hard place. I do want to take a break because you mentioned the Chrome thing. Before the show, Benito said, our producer, why would anybody want Chrome? How can you? But that may be what's going on. Everybody seems to want it. We'll talk about that in just a bit. Abrar Al-Hiti is here, senior technology reporter at CNET. Great to see you. Daniel Rubino, editor-in-chief at Windows Central. And Kathy Gellis, attorney at law, CG Counsel, COUNSEL.com. She's also Kathy Gellis on Blue Sky. Kathy with the C. Good to have all three of you. We're going to move on in just a minute. But first, a word from our sponsor. This episode of This Week in Tech is brought to you by Kinsta. When you run an online business, you have many different hats to wear, right? So Kinsta makes it easy for businesses. They are managed WordPress hosting, and they are experts in WordPress hosting. Their team will handle everything. They bundle up all the essentials, everything you need to make sites stress-free with speeds that will wow your visitors. We know this, by the way. If a site is slow, people don't waste. They're bored. They're tired. They move on. Not with Kinsta. Sites pop up. And security that never sleeps. You don't have to worry about it because they take care of it. Plus a dashboard so intuitive, you'll wonder why everything in life isn't this easy. When you hit a snag, there are real humans there, real WordPress experts, 24/7, 365 days a year. In short, Kinsta is perfect for those who want professional results without all the technology and the technical background. Kinsta doesn't just host WordPress websites. They deliver blazing speed. Your website could run as much as 200% faster with ironclad security and reliability. And if you're worried about moving to Kinsta, no, don't worry. They'll migrate your entire website for free. Plus, you've got a 30-day money-back guarantee, so there's no risk at all. When it comes to security, Kinsta's in a league of its own. This is really important when it comes to WordPress. It's one of the few WordPress hosting providers that backs its promises with multiple enterprise certification. Kinsta's custom control panel is intuitive, but don't worry, you're never on your own. You'll get real WordPress pros there anytime you need them, not AI chatbots, experts who will respond in minutes and tackle even the trickiest problems. Who uses Kinsta? The big boys. TripAdvisor, NASA, Indeed uses Kinsta among the 120,000 businesses that trust Kinsta for their WordPress websites. Tired of being your own website support team? Switch your hosting to Kinsta and get your first month free. And don't worry about the move. They'll handle the whole transition for you. No tech expertise required. Just visit kinsta.com/twit to get started. That's KINSTA.com/twit. Kinsta. We thank them so much for supporting This Week in Tech. Thank you, Kinsta. All right. So why are we even talking about Google Chrome being for sale? Well, this is part of the government's stated aims, the FTC and the Department of Justice suing Google. They won. Google is a monopoly, according to the court. And now the court is looking at remedies. And one of the remedies the government has asked for is the sale of Chrome. How does that work?
I think one of the things Google is saying is that
they say you can't.
They say they can.
They cannot.
Yeah, no, it's like that's a weird thing to
only
slice off
Google
yourself.
can run Chrome, says Google.
I don't know if I buy that, but what it would be deprived of if it couldn't have it, given that web engines are essentially not interesting external software, but so rolled into what you need for basic functionality of a whole lot of stuff.
Parisa Tabriz, who's the general manager of Chrome at Google, says Chrome today represents 17 years of collaboration between the Chrome people. Trying to disentangle that's unprecedented. Part of the problem is Chrome is based on Chromium, which is an open source project, and Blink, which is the engine, also an open source project. And so it is technically not owned by Google. Now, the fact is that almost everybody who works on those projects is a Google employee. Right. But honestly, you've got the Chromium. Couldn't you just, I don't know what you're getting. When you buy an open source project, what are you getting? Abrar, is the government not understand what's going on?
Yes,
that's usually
correct.
my take. I think that's usually my take on these things. Because the other piece of it is, they have this idea where if after 5 years, I believe, if things haven't gotten better in the search space, that they would then force Google to spin off Android. I mean, it's just like this very drastic measures that they're thinking about. And, it's not surprising that they've ruled that Google is a monopoly, but I don't know what is solved if OpenAI then acquires Chrome. I don't has that fixed anything? I don't know.
Judge Amit Mehta, who ruled that Google was a search monopoly. By the way, this case is a search monopoly. There's another case they lost last week that they were an ad monopoly, but that's a separate case. In this case, the government's Meta is now doing the penalty phase. Like, well, okay, what are the remedies going to be? A 3-week hearing, and the government says, well, among other things, they want it to sell Google and share some of the data it collects. To create the search results. It's also asked the judge, not Meta, the company, Judge Mehta, the judge, to ban Google from paying for search engine defaults. Now, I don't think this hurts Google, but it sure hurts Apple, Mozilla, and Samsung. It's estimated that Google pays Apple, $20 billion a year? It's a big part of its services revenue.
And are they still paying for Mozilla to create
They still
Firefox?
give Mozilla hundreds of millions of dollars a year.
Yeah.
Without which there is no Mozilla, there's no Firefox.
Yeah.
I think.
So if Google doesn't have Chrome, it means that they're not funding the engineering work to develop Chrome, and they're not funding these other Mozilla to build Firefox. And this doesn't help the public. This remedy would make the public worse off than
I hope the judge is going to be smart enough to know that, look, that's not, you got to support In fact, I would say the judge should say, no, Google should give more money to Firefox. Google should support the alternative. The government also asked the judge to ban Google for paying. Oh, no, we mentioned that. That would also apply to, we're learning now, Google pays a lot of money to Samsung and others for them to use Gemini, their AI product.
Not surprising.
Yeah, we're finding a lot of stuff out. These trials are always kind of revelatory.
Yeah.
Early on Friday, a computer science expert for the Justice Department, James Mickens, testified that Google could easily transfer ownership of Chrome to another company without breaking its functionality. Mickens is a professor of computer science at Harvard. The divestiture of Chrome is I want him to sound like the guy, Professor Frink. The divestiture of Chrome is feasible from a technical perspective. It would be feasible to transfer ownership and not break too much. But
that's not the whole question. I mean, you're talking about, okay, antitrust means
break
that
much.
It wouldn't break much. I mean, the whole point with why we care about having antitrust law is that consumers don't have enough market choices. So if you do a remedy that ultimately has the effect of eliminating market choices, you have not solved the problem.
Isn't it? Yeah. Google says they invest hundreds of millions of dollars into the open source Chromium project. 1,000 engineers within the division have contributed to the project. She says Tabri says 90% of the code for Chromium since 2015 has come from Google. Although I think Microsoft probably has contributed back some from its Edge, which is based on Chromium, right?
It does. Yep.
In internal documents, Google says it intends to develop Chrome into an agentic browser, which incorporates AI agents. In other words, Google has plans for Chrome, Judge, Your Honor. Please don't make us sell it. It's hard to think of what the remedy should be. Obviously.
Yeah, I'm struggling with this too. I don't like the idea of companies paying billions to other companies to use their product, their software. Right. I feel like that is kind of unfair, right? Even like with Gemini, right? So I don't have a problem necessarily that Gemini might ship with Android operating system and part of that Google suite of stuff. That's fine. But, like Microsoft has its Copilot, right? And so, but people have to go and download that and it's separate. It is kind of unfair in terms of it doesn't really give Microsoft a shot at that. But I don't, the browser stuff, same thing. The problem with this is, back in the day, Microsoft got sued because they were bundling their browser into Windows and forcing it as the default option, and people lost their minds over it. We're basically doing the same thing now because a browser is basically almost an operating system at this point. It's so complicated, it can do so much stuff. I mean, that's what, Google has built an operating system around almost. So now within the browser itself, you're going to make it an agentic AI thing, right? So they're going to bootstrap all their services into that as well. So it continues to get more and more complicated, and it favors that company. And that's where this idea of a monopoly, I think, really starts to come to focus. But how do you solve that? Because there are alternative browsers. We had that great story coming up about being paid not to use Google search, and how, people were using Bing and like, hey, it's not actually so bad. So these services are out there, but it's hard to get people to switch to them, but I don't know. It's a very complicated problem. Same with the social network.
You're talking about a study. This is really kind of fascinating from the Washington Post. The government wants you to get paid not to use Google search. A group of researchers say it's identified a hidden reason we use Google for web searches. We've never tried the other guys. We've never given them a real shot. Now, who paid for this study? I wonder if Google had something to do with it. The research suggests our mass devotion to Googling can be altered by bribing people to try search alternatives to see what they like. Microsoft may be paid for this. I don't know. About 9 out of 10 web searches we do is through Google. They have 90% of the web search market, at least according to the 2020 figures cited in the monopoly ruling against Google last year. Bing is just 6%. So a group of academics from Stanford, the University of Pennsylvania, and MIT designed a novel experiment to figure out what might shake up Google's popularity They recruited 2,500 paid participants, remotely monitored their web searches on computers for months. You wouldn't like that, would you, Kathy? The core of the experiment was paying some participants. Most received a mere $10 to use Bing rather than Google for 2 weeks. Now, I'm going to ask our chat room. If I said I'd pay you $10 to use Bing for 2 weeks, I bet you most of them, without even thinking about it, would say, oh, no. No way. Bing's terrible, right? They never even used it, right? Couldn't pay me to use Bing. But those people who did it, 22% were still using it many weeks later.
I think this is where I think, I think the issue with this too is like, it really, there's that quote in there that the person tried and they're like, Bing's actually not so bad. And I think that's, if you're at least in the United States, there's not a ton of difference between Bing and Google search. Sometimes they give you different results. It might have better results on one over the other, but I go back and forth and try them and I get different things. I like how Bing does the images better than Google does in terms of browsing images and stuff, right? So it's not like there's a drastic difference. I will say Bing is not as good outside the US as it is inside. This is an issue that Microsoft struggles with. So that's
interesting.
I think people do make a lot of like, it's I don't know. And whenever I hear people like Google search is so much better, I'm like, no, it's not.
It's really actually gotten much worse in my opinion.
And it's got a lot worse. Yeah.
I mean,
I don't even use Google anymore. I use Cocky and Perplexity, and I use AI to do my searching most of the time.
This whole lawsuit is, I think, kind of ridiculous. I mean, even before we get into the remedy problem, where what you were talking about things being bundled together, it's a concept in antitrust law called tying, that if it's sort of a take it or leave it with this other, to use this one thing, you now have to use this other thing, and they're going to close out competitors who now can't compete on the other thing because nobody's going to choose to pay when they can get something for free. But I'm not entirely sure how a case saying you've got a monopoly in search is affected, or either it's the problem or it's the solution that you have to divest of a browser, unless they were really arguing that tying somehow created the monopoly in search. But I always found, and I know the lawsuit changed over time, but when it was first announced, I have a TechDirt post from 2020 where I thought the original filing was just ridiculous in how they were arguing the monopoly in search in the first place. And the headline on it is trademark genericide, and one big way the DOJ admits that its antitrust lawsuit against Google is utter garbage, because the way they drafted it was sort of by pointing out all the competition as part of their complaint as evidence that there was no competition. It was bizarre. But look, okay, I can accept maybe you still, with a well-pled complaint, can get that Google has a little bit too much marketplace power, but it clearly isn't a monopoly in that we're talking about how you can use Bing and you can use all
Judge Mehta disagreed with you, though, right? He ruled that they were.
Well, I haven't looked at the case because I need to see how the thing was queued up and what the actual legal questions were and what he was looking at. And there may be more tussling among the lawyers to figure it out. But I'm a little bit, and also
now we're at remedy
the trial
stage.
Court, we may be going up to appeals.
Well, that's true.
And maybe it's going to be looked at to say that's nuts. If you're in a marketplace with other competitors and those other and your product is declining in market share while the other ones are already ascending, as a matter of law, can you have too much market power? But then even if you say yes, then you get into the question of what's the remedy, and just randomly gutting the company and slicing off other pieces that are going to have market.
It's hard to come up with a remedy. Make any sense. This study led the Colorado Attorney General to ask the judge. He said, "I know what you could do: pay people to use something besides Google search."
They can argue don't tie the things together, and then the remedy is like, "Ooh, you created a problem because you tied your search to your other products," and then the remedy is, don't tie your search to the other products and make sure it's nice and easy that people can slide around and use some other ones. That would make sense, but that doesn't seem like what the issue is or what's on the table.
I don't know what the remedy could possibly be. By the way, there are a lot of people who think Chrome is worth something. Yahoo wants to buy it. OpenAI wants to buy it. And Perplexity wants to buy it. Incidentally, it's interesting. The CEO of Perplexity, which is developing its own browser, I think Comet is the name of it, has been very open, saying, yeah, we want to use Comet so we can find out more about people. and sell product and aim ads at them. Like he's being very open about it. I mean, I guess that's what Google's doing, but
yeah, and that's my question: is does the user experience get better because another company is now in charge?
no, it would only get worse, right?
Like that's if we're actually thinking about the impact on consumers and everyday people. If in the end, that experience goes even more downhill, what have we solved?
Yeah.
Here's the solution. Everybody's got to get rid of all their browsers. We just all use Chromium. And everybody contribute to the open source project.
No.
It.
It's links or bust. Maybe some Gopher. Like let's just
links
go back
LYNX. She's talking about the command line text only browser. Yeah, sure.
It's a deep cut.
We didn't need wheels either.
Right.
It's all
We're back Netscape. Let's go Netscape. We'll make
Netscape is all fancy schmancy. You got to go to Mosaic if you're going to go up from
Firefox is open source. It's not just the Mozilla Foundation. There are a lot of spin-offs of Firefox. I use one called Zen that I love. There's a lot of choice, but the truth is most people just use Chrome, partly because it's got the brand, partly because Google pays companies, especially phone companies, to use Chrome, notably not Apple, but on all the Android devices, Chrome is present.
A lot of times it's just simple, like people are just familiar with it.
Yeah.
And they just like that experience, because like I tell people all the time, I think Brave is one of the best browsers out there.
Yeah.
I love Brave. They're doing some really creative
Chromium
stuff out there.
Yeah.
And if you go use it, it's like, it's not just like Chromium though. Like they put in some really cool features in there that no one else does. And then you have Opera. They have their new Opera Air, I think it's called, which is a very unique take on a browser.
Calm browser.
Yeah. It can play music in the background. Like it does. Like there's a lot of innovation in this space. And if people just tried these browsers, they'd be like, oh, these are actually pretty cool. It's not just like clones of the same browser. And Microsoft's Edge, it's done a ton of like innovation in there. There's like so many features that they built into it. But it's tough because you can tell people about all this. But then at the end of the day, they're going to be like, but I know Chrome. I know where everything is. I know how it works.
Should point out that the trial only said Google has a monopoly in search. This isn't really about Chrome.
Well, that's why I can't figure out where Chrome is.
Well, the judge recognizes that search is based on signals that Google gets from Chrome. So what they're trying to do is, and other remedies, maybe a more sensible one, is for Google to open its search index. And I think this would be a great solution so that other companies can compete. One of the people who testified in the trial was a browser company called, I paid for it. I loved it. Was it Neva? What was it? It was a great browser. The founder said, we can't compete because Chrome is so dominant. There's just no money in it. So they actually abandoned the browser market.
So a huge critical question. What is the browser that handles large amounts of tabs the best?
Because that's all that really matters.
It's totally all that really matters.
I think it's Chrome, isn't it? I don't know.
No, I think Edge has done a lot of work around that because they use the feature, but I think now it's part of the Chromium thing where the sleeping tabs, where the tabs will go.
Yeah.
Where they go back.
I have a couple of use cases. One, the sleeping tab, so it doesn't just chew up all the memory when you open more than a dozen. But the second thing is I'd be interested in who has a native tab handler that handles it really well. Because
I'm fond of Arc, which is a Chromium-based browser that I thought did tabs. They do vertical tabs very well. And one of the reasons I'm using the Zen browser, it's basically the Arc interface with the Firefox engine. And I want to support a third-party engine. So take a look at Zen Browser. It's an open source free project.
I will say also, like in Edge right now, there's you can hit the little icon at the top. It should be in your browser. If not, it's in the menu called Browser Essentials. And it's a health system of the browser. So I'm looking at mine. I have a switch that says Save Power with Efficient Mode. And you can click that on or off. Shows me 23 tabs are sleeping to save resources. Right. And it shows 85% savings. It shows me the memory being used. The tab performance is healthy right now. So they have like all these features built into it that help you manage because I'm one of those people. I sometimes have 120 tabs.
I got an idea.
Oh, wait,
why don't you close your freaking tabs? What do you got so many tabs open?
Doing
120? That is nothing. add at least a 0 and you might get my current tab.
Why do you have so many tabs?
I'm busy.
There's no way.
Get in the habit.
See if you had
Control
recall.
W. Just Control W. Get in
Every
the
time
habit.
I close a tab, gosh darn it, I totally needed that. And like now I'm all interrupted. I'm not going to be able to find it again. I have a lot going on.
See, that's why you need Windows Recall. It'll do that. You just tell what you were looking
You
for.
guys are tab hoarders.
Truly. I don't think I have more than like 6 open at a time ever.
Oh my God.
Like I can't do
Too.
it.
I believe in tab sanitation. You
Truly.
get rid of the tabs you don't need. It's a good idea. Just clean up after yourself.
So right now I do have more than normally. I
1,200.
I don't usually cross 1,000, but I usually hang out somewhere around 7. Usual for me.
I think you need a better tool. I don't know what would
Well, I do
that.
need another tool. Hence the question.
They
But,
are starting to use AI now to group your tabs, which is pretty cool.
I mean, I could group them. I want the control, and it's just right now I just don't have that control.
Also, our chat room is suggesting, I think Surge Strip said Opera does a good job with tabs too.
Thank you.
Opera's very innovative. I would look at Vivaldi too. That's a Chromium-based browser that has a lot of. I don't like it because you use so much customization. It's like I feel guilty that I haven't used all the features and switched all the switches. All right, let's take a little break. And somebody help Kathy with her tab hoarding. Okay,
I don't have a problem. I can quit my tabs anytime.
You're not alone. A lot of our listeners tell me they have hundreds and hundreds of tabs open. I think Steve Gibson, our security guy, also does the same thing. But I do think that there is a trend of people closing their tabs more than they used to.
I would like
the
to have
young
them.
people are closing their tabs.
Kids today, they just don't
Kids
know.
close their tabs.
I mean, I would like to close. I'd like to be able to bunch them and manage them because a lot of them are
Firefox
open
does
and,
that now.
and just waiting for
tab
me.
Grouping. Yeah.
Does it? Okay, I haven't
Yeah.
figured out how to.
It would be a good thing to have projects, right, where you have all the tabs. And I think that's why I use like Zen and Arc, because you can pin stuff that you always want, and then you can create tab groupings, and so that you have different. It's a little bit more compartmentalized. It's a first step to cleaning up.
It's an important step. I was talking about control. I know my needs. I just want to be able to be the master of the solution.
I think a lot of people, and I think it's writers, will have a lot of tabs. It's like their research, and they'll have a lot. Is that right, Abrar? Do you do that too?
That's
you have
most
a lot
of my
tabs
coworkers
open.
are that way. But apparently I'm the only abnormal one. I don't know who doesn't have that many.
I think when you're done though, like the pieces.
Oh, it's so satisfying.
Then you should close the.
That's true. Yes, agreed.
Yes.
Hi, this is Benito. I got one quick question for you, Kathy. How many unread emails do you have?
I have more than 22,000.
I mean, in terms of unread, a lot, but in terms of anything I need to read,
right?
None.
I don't read it all. Who reads it all anymore?
Well, you don't clear it out. Like I'm a zero inbox person, so
Me too.
I can't.
I
can't have a number next to my inbox. I can't.
Yeah.
Oh, I turn that off.
It's too far gone at this point. I have I'm like 15 years, I think, on Gmail or something. Exactly. It's just like it's too far gone. But it's kind of cool though, because I do go back to email
it's
from
a
2012.
Database.
Yeah,
it's a database.
It's insane. Yeah.
I think that's a sensible use of email.
I actually also like the when they rolled it out,
tabs,
a lot of people thought it was stupid, but it funnels like into the 5 categories automatically if you set it. And a lot of people mocked it. I actually find that extremely useful and generally pretty apt and controllable if it gets things wrong.
How many of you use Gmail as your primary mail? Gmail?
I mean, I use it for work, but I use Outlook as my personal.
Outlook is your personal. Yeah.
Talk about a monopoly, huh? No, I'm just kidding.
No, it makes sense. It's amazing how many people use Gmail.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. I mean, I use it as a client. I don't like to give out my Gmail address because I reserve the right to walk away from it, but it's a really nice client to just handle all the email that comes in.
Yeah, I like to pay for my email because I think I want to own it. I don't want Google to own my email.
Yeah.
I like to pay for it. I guess with Workspace, and the company uses Workspace, we're paying for it. It's the worst of both worlds. All right, let's take a little break. You're watching This Week in Tech. Abrar Al-Hidi, it's wonderful to have you. Daniel Rubino, Kathy Gellis, and of course you, dear listener. So nice to have you all on this Sunday afternoon, evening, Monday morning, depending on where you're watching. Our show today brought to you by Monarch Money. I've been using this and I love it. Finances are It can be messy. They can be confusing. Monarch Money acts like your personal CFO, giving you full visibility and control so you can stop earning and start growing. It's more than your average budgeting app. Monarch Money is a complete financial command center for your accounts, for your investments, for your goals. Don't just, manage your money. Start building wealth. And by the way, right now is a good time to do it. 50% off your first year of Monarch Money, but just because you're listening. I use Monarch Money. I love it. I have every account in it, and it made it very easy to get all my accounts in it. And now I have a dashboard, so I know exactly how I'm doing. Start managing your finances to build the life you actually want. I can tell you this, without a clear financial picture, financial dreams can feel out of reach, but Monarch makes managing money simple, even for busy lives. With all your accounts, your credit cards, your investments, your bank accounts, all in one place, you'll always know where your money stands without the hassle. I can see my net worth right away. Maybe don't want to these days, but I can see it right away. I can see it going down. It's nice, though, to see exactly where everything is. The problem is, ignorance is not bliss. You need to keep track of this stuff. It's important. Track your spending, your savings, your investments, and do so effortlessly. Then you can focus on what matters most, making your biggest life goals a reality. Monarch Money is the finance tool people actually love. Join over 1 million households, named Wall Street Journal's best budgeting app of 2025, the top recommended personal finance app by users and experts, over 30,000 5-star reviews. And I love it too. Add mine. I've been using it. I swear, as soon as I started using it, I said, I want a year. I want to subscribe right now. Get control of your overall finances with Monarch Money. Use code TWIT at monarchmoney.com in your browser for half off your first year. That's 50% off your first year at monarchmoney.com with code TWIT. Well, Mark Zuckerberg says social media is over, but 4chan's not. How's that about merging two stories into one big headline? 4chan is back online. It was hacked, and it was, I think, Wired declared it dead. All of the moderator emails were leaked. They call them janitors on 4chan, and rightly so, because it's kind of a mess. I'm not sure I'm happy that 4chan's back. I know none of you use 4chan, but do you, for your jobs, ever visit?
Nope.
No.
Absolutely not.
No. All right. Well, 4chan was...
That's too chaotic for me.
It's crazy.
Yeah.
It's crazy. Actually, I feel like X.com has become much like 4chan. I stopped using X for the same reason. It brings me down, man.
Yeah.
All right. Well, Mark Zuckerberg says, don't worry, social media is over. As you know, Meta is on trial this week, an antitrust trial. Have you been following this, Kathy? Or do you care? Oh, you're muted. Your microphone's been coming and going. Mm-hmm. Hello? Push a button.
User error. Sorry.
User error.
No.
So have you been following the Mark Zuckerberg Meta trial?
Not that closely.
It's funny. Neither have I. I don't care.
Yeah. I mean, there's a lot of other things I'm tracking a lot more closely that matters to my world. And it just feels like yesterday's issues, and nobody's going to get any of the issues right. The one side is going to be wrong. The other side is going to be wrong. It's just not work. Like, I'll clean up the mess after they finish making it.
Zuckerberg on the witness stand admitted that social media is less social. He had to testify for 10 hours over 3 days last week. This is part of the FTC's antitrust trial against Meta. Zuckerberg said the company has lately been involved in, quote, the general idea of entertainment and learning about the world and discovering what's going on. Not so much about your friends.
I think there's some validity to that just based off of my own experience. Like, I spend a lot of time on TikTok, for example, and I don't want to see my friends' posts on
TikTok's
there.
never been about your friends.
It's never been about your friends, right?
Yeah.
And so then I think what Instagram does, for example, is it copies what TikTok does. And so it wants to show you stuff from creators that you don't actually know. And so it's kind of Mark Zuckerberg's fault. I mean, I don't like, you're the one who owns the platform that is then copying what other people are doing and showing people things that aren't necessarily relevant to the people they actually know. I didn't, did he say that it was a bad thing that it's no longer like that? It's
he just says we've refocused. I mean, really the promise of Facebook from day one was connecting people, right?
Yeah,
connecting you with your friends, your family, your high school classmates, your college classmates, your work colleagues, whatever. And for the longest time, the only reason I thought to use Facebook was so you could stay in touch with those
exactly.
people.
Absolutely.
But he says that over time, that's an old idea, that over time, people have started using Facebook less for that and more using it like you use TikTok.
They got rid of for that.
Exactly.
They change your feed
less because you're not seeing those people.
They did it all. They did it to us, right?
They pumped in news for a long time. Then there was all this other distraction. They made it hard to find people, the people you follow, their content.
Exactly.
So it's like now they're kind of undoing that stuff, but it's a little bit too late.
He has so little intuition for the needs and desires of his users, and he keeps ending up creating the environment and then frustrating people, and he changes habits that because we have no choice in it, then those habits go bad, then he complains about people aren't using the platform. If he followed what the users were doing and what the users wanted, he would have a successful platform where he wouldn't be saying oops right now and having people just wander away. And now it's a lot easier to wander away because people are starting to wander away for political reasons. And it's much easier because people are like, is this really a loss for me? I'm not getting the value out of it that I either used to have or thought I would get, or even if I was still getting it, half the people I wanted to connect to, they've all left. I mean, just how to not grow your site and just alienate your users because you just don't understand them and what they want and what they're going to use your technology for.
A couple of weeks ago, I was doing my taxes and I needed some entertainment. And I just received an email from Dan Patterson, who's been on the show for a long time. He said, my first time on the show was March 2009. And he said, I was on with, get this, Jason Calacanis, Gina Trapani, David Prager, Sam Levine of Freaks and Geeks, LeVar Burton of Star Trek, and Kevin Pollak, the comic. And I thought, wow, that was a pretty good show. So I was listening to the show. And the funniest thing, the big story was the huge uproar over Facebook moving to the news feed. Do you remember that in 2009? That was the beginning of it becoming a different platform.
Yeah.
And they were at the time, there was no TikTok. They were jealous of Twitter.
Yeah. And
right.
To some degree, I guess MySpace was pretty much dead by then. Yeah.
Oh, they'd beat MySpace.
Yeah.
They were trying to be like Twitter, like, no, not what your friends, it's what's going on. They had, I think, the intuition probably correct that we wanted to be entertained when we picked up our phone.
It's all about time on site, right? It was all about trying to give you enough stuff so you never leave the platform. If Facebook
and your friends aren't doing enough to do that, right?
Yeah, if that's all it was, you just connect to your friends.
They're not doing
their
job,
man.
man.
I'm done. Let me go check out the news. Let me go look at this stuff. You're leaving the platform, and X is trying to do the same thing, and that's the problem. That's why we can't have nice things, because you create like a really cool tool. And then it's like, no, we need more. This is why, by the way, I still love Drudge Report. I will always defend this because he never did more than that site. He just creates that front page, never changed the font.
It even looks the same as it did 15 years ago, right?
He didn't try to create a media company and try to create a magazine, and he just stuck to it. And it's still the same thing for 15 years ago. It's just awesome. Whether you agree with some of his politics or not, actually, he's been pretty funny lately. But I just appreciate the fact that he just stuck to that and it hasn't changed because it's
who he's copying?
It's
Craig Newmark and Craigslist, which never changed either, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
If somebody created a website where you would just follow your friends and family, the problem is you got the network effect, like everybody's on Facebook. But if you could somehow magically change it so that Facebook were once again just your friends and family, would that be good? Would people want that?
I think so.
I have been told.
I think if all these services were just their original version of their services, they would still be pretty successful. If Facebook was still regular Facebook, if Twitter was still regular Twitter, if Instagram was regular Instagram, I think they'd all do just fine.
If you go to feeds on Facebook and then you select friends, there's still some ads, there's sponsored stuff in there, but this is basically people I follow.
Yeah.
Yeah. It's the right.
And it's boring as hell.
Yeah. See, I don't think I would enjoy that very much, because when I do still go on X, and I actually, like, I'll admit it, I kind of enjoy some of the viral stuff that I see on my feed. And
you go to the For You tab,
I go to the For You tab, and I
not the following.
I can't remember the last time I clicked on the following tab.
Wow.
I know, but I do resent the fact that I don't see content for people I follow on my For You tab as much. I actually really don't like that. But if I had to choose between the two, I'm more likely to laugh at stuff on my For You tab than I am on my following tab.
So Mark's right. You go there for entertainment. You don't go there to see what your family's up to.
But I don't know. I get that from the people that I follow. Like, I do want to see that, and I think it scratches
maybe it's a better mix.
Entertaining.
I think it has to be a mix.
That's what you want, right?
Yeah, I think so too.
Maybe there should be a knob that you could say, little more of my following in there. Would you?
Well, I want all the people that I choose to follow. I don't mind getting extra with it, but I'm not getting the former, and then like, depending on how much time I have, how bored I am, give me more because I ran out of all my friend stuff. I don't mind having access to more, but the more is coming at the cost of, like, the basics of what I'm there for. And that's not helpful. So.
And I feel like this conversation about what Facebook has become ties directly to another headline that came out of this trial about how Mark Zuckerberg feels like Instagram cannibalized Facebook's success, which is really interesting to kind of dive into his true feelings about an app that he spent a lot of money acquiring, and then was like, ooh, this is complicated because it's not the app that he created and he has this connection with, but it's an app that was starting to really take off and kind of leave Facebook in the dust. And so to kind of see a piece of how he was thinking about Instagram was a really interesting revelation.
Actually, the founder of Instagram, Kevin Systrom, testified. And I don't think he testified in defense of Meta, because he said basically once Meta bought Instagram, they starved us.
Yeah.
They didn't want us to succeed. They were basically killing or trying to kill Instagram.
Apparently denied a lot of requests for more staff. But then that also makes me wonder, would Instagram be what it is today without having been bought out by Facebook, right? I don't know the answer to that.
They were tiny. I mean, it was, I remember, because it was $1 billion, and I thought, for an app? $1 billion for an app? Of course, WhatsApp ended up being like $32 billion. So I guess I was wrong about that. But even then, Instagram had 10 or 15 employees. It was tiny. Mm-hmm. It was small for $1 billion.
Yeah.
And it's come out in the trial basically that the reason they bought it, they were threatened by it. They bought it to to protect the blue site, Facebook.
Yeah. But then Instagram still grew, right? It still became what it is today. So it's like this weird two-sided thing.
Systrom said he left Meta in 2018 because he felt like Mark wanted Instagram to die. Mm-hmm. Although at that time, Instagram, it was already 1 billion users. It was 40% of Facebook's size.
Yeah.
And still only 1,000 employees compared to 35,000 at Facebook. Systrom testified, we were by far the fastest growing team. We produced the most revenue, and relative to what we should have been at the time, I felt we could have been much larger. So he left. So really, one of the things that's going to come out of this case, I think, who knows if the FTC will continue to pursue it. Maybe if Mark Zuckerberg gives Donald Trump enough money, they'll lose interest, whatever. He tried. He tried. Facebook gave Trump $23 million in a settlement, right? And millions for his inaugural. Wasn't enough. Mm-hmm. Trump even said, I'm still a little mad at you. So the trial continues, but it's likely that what they're going to ask for is a breakup of Facebook, Instagram, and WhatsApp, 3 different companies.
It'd be major.
It would be a big deal.
Because, going back to when Facebook first acquired Instagram, I think a big piece of why people then signed up for Instagram en masse is because there was that familiarity of like, oh, Facebook now has this platform that I had never heard of before. And then they kind of...
Well, and look what happened with Threads.
And
Threads grew instantly because it was your Instagram account.
I mean, I'm sure we all remember that day that everyone just joined in like hordes and thought that Twitter was dead, right? Because everyone was joining Threads. And God, I can't remember the last time I opened Threads now. There was this moment of hype, right? Because it was a clear connection between something that you were already using. So be interesting if that actually did end up getting separated.
Would there be, I guess there would be precedent, Kathy, for breaking the company up. I mean, that's what happened with Ma Bell. It's what happened with Standard Oil. I mean, that's what antitrust actions often do result in. In fact, the government wanted to break Microsoft up in the late 90s when they went after them.
Well, how you break it, I think I'm befuddled by the slicing off Chrome, because in theory, you want to split up what you've overly dominated, where you don't have enough, there's not enough diversity in the market. So it seems weird to say, okay, you've got a search problem, so therefore you should cut off another part of your company. Now, what you were saying is that the Chrome feeds into the search, but it just seems way too far removed to not actually solve the problem.
But you could see Instagram, Facebook, and WhatsApp being standalone companies, each strong in their own right in 3 different areas.
I worry a lot about what would feed WhatsApp if Facebook, I essentially read that as a situation where Facebook is subsidizing it.
Financially is what you're saying.
And that
because WhatsApp is dominant in everywhere but the United States, right? All over the world.
Right. And you kind of need it to keep going, but what's its standalone profit model? I mean, I don't really understand why Facebook, well, I guess Facebook kind of wanted, my read on it is they wanted access to the technology so that they could roll in the encryption into its messaging. And it's really hard to develop that from scratch. So better to buy somebody where you get all that IP and you can use it. And now Facebook Messenger is starting to encrypt stuff. So, but otherwise, I sort of worry now that they've done that they'll just starve the WhatsApp, and that would be a big problem.
You'd almost have to tell Facebook to stop doing Messenger to make WhatsApp succeed. I use WhatsApp. It used to charge $1 a year, which obviously is not enough. What did they still do that? I don't remember paying anything, but who knows?
I've never paid.
Yeah. No, so it's free.
And it's a major medium in a lot of places where $1 would be ridiculously expensive.
And probably the reason Facebook continues to run it is they're getting ad information about you. They're getting location information. They can't see your messages. Those are encrypted. Right. But they're getting enough information to make it valuable for an ad play on. There's no ads on WhatsApp yet, although they've made noises about thinking about that. But that's probably why Instagram and Facebook ads are so effective, because they've got even more information than just those 2 apps. Yes.
People should just use Telegram anyway. It's a better app.
I love Telegram, even though it's, there's issues.
It's not the thing that you can rely on for a lot of the stuff that it may be good for as a communications
Who cares
client,
if somebody can read my messages? Really? I mean,
you need. I think the problem with Telegram is it gives a false sense of security and how much security you have in your messages.
Yeah, it's not.
And you need it to not go in eyes open if you're using it.
It's not as sexy as Signal, but if you want real security, you use Signal. Or I guess WhatsApp.
Telegram's open source though, right? Like you can go look at the code.
Telegram, and they use a roll your own encryption, which is not industry standard. Let's put it that way. It's not. Yeah. It's probably not good. The way they defend it is say, well, we've offered $200,000. Anybody can crack it, and no one has. But the experts who've looked at it say this is encryption as written by somebody who doesn't know how encryption works.
It's just funny because on Telegram, I find the innovation of features is just
I love it.
Ahead of WhatsApp.
The groups and the stickers and I agree.
I mean, they come up with so many ways to keep advancing. It's really interesting. I don't really use it even for like that. I use it just as a personal messenger
because no one uses it.
Right? Not so much in this country. It's quite popular in other countries.
Telegram?
Yeah. More
that's the key, right? You got to use whatever. I just use text messages because everybody uses it.
Yeah. So as a personal messenger, I agree. There's a lot of competition. In the United States, SMS still reigns there, or FaceTime or whatever. Europe, WhatsApp is definitely big for that feature. Telegram, I would say, got notoriety because of you can go find groups on topics of things you're interested in, including terrorism. And other,
there's all sorts of skeezy stuff on Telegram. We know that.
Yeah, right. And so you can join those groups.
That?
Yeah. I mean, that's just kind of the nature of the internet. But
the other thing about some of these things is you want something that's going to use the internet connection of your phone as opposed to the telephony aspects of the phone, because they tend to be cheaper if just buy one data plan and then you just stick whatever app on top of that.
That's why WhatsApp got dominant very quickly over SMS. But here in the United States, it's free. So that's why it hasn't been dominant in the United States. I think probably just text messaging is dominant in the United States. Right?
SMS got a lot cheaper because it was really being overcharged for. Like,
but it's free now. It's free.
It's functionally free, but it took a long time to get that.
I understand. There, so. Well, that's why
it used to be ridiculously expensive.
And that's the story of WhatsApp.
Yeah,
that's why, and Telegram and all these other data-based messengers. But those days are gone, and the problem is habits die hard. And there's a network effect. You've got to have the messaging system all the people you want to talk to use. And I did some years ago, because I, like you, I really liked Telegram, Daniel. And I tried to get everybody I knew to move to Telegram. Nobody moved.
Zero. It's really hard. It was like switching browsers.
My wife and I, for a while, used Telegram with our son. And then we just end up text messaging.
Yeah. I mean, I wouldn't want... It sounds like it offers nice things as a communications client, but the real need that I have is, increasingly is security in the communications itself. And
so you use Signal, right?
So I use Signal a lot, and I prefer it to WhatsApp, which I used to avoid deliberately because its privacy practices were slurping contacts.
It's the best way to share war plans, I find.
Yeah.
Always.
Many people agree.
It's for people like you and me, Signal is more than adequate, right?
Yeah.
It is important for people to understand that if somebody's compromised your device, that they can read your Signal messages. Yeah. It's only encrypted on the way between devices, but as soon as it gets to a device, it's not encrypted. So, if you care that much, I would hope you would know about OPSEC and protecting yourself. And so
and maybe
I've used
if you're
Signal
in charge
with people
of a large nation's security force, you would also.
I use Signal with people who with whom I want to have a private conversation. There are not many of them. Everybody else, I just text. And if you're Apple to Apple, it's encrypted. It's as encrypted as Signal. It's as secure as Signal. I don't know. I think it would be fine. Like you, Kathy, I find it hard to even care about Meta anymore.
Meta of the company? Yeah.
Yeah, that's why I don't follow this trial. But I feel like we should talk about it, especially when Mark Zuckerberg says social 2010.
Well, I just can't tune into it a little bit because other more exigent things are breaking, and this feels very old news, and and they're going to do whatever they're going to do, and this is also too early for me to show up and what am I going to do affect the outcome of this trial. At some point there'll be briefing, at some point there'll be amicus briefs, probably on appeal. I'll care then. I can't fix this now anyway.
Right. We do have a little bit more Google news. We didn't get it all. They decided not to abandon third-party cookies. They had this whole big plan for a privacy sandbox that was going to protect everybody. And they were going to get rid of third-party cookies. And then they talked to advertisers. And guess what? The advertisers said, don't. And Google said, oh, okay. And that's the end of the privacy sandbox.
That's pretty much how everything shakes out in the world.
Yeah. Advertisers said no. So they said, oh,
yeah.
Okay. And by the way, Google's quarterly results were out and they topped Wall Street's expectations. 12% revenue growth, 46% increase in net income, earnings of $2.81 a share. They had a great quarter. So there, DOJ.
That's not going to go as well when they get to the antitrust for the ad.
Right.
But.
Right. They're going to do a $70 billion, a little bit more, $70 billion stock buyback program. Which shareholders love. And of course, it helped their stock price. I don't usually do financial news, but it's, in the context of what we're talking about, it's good to point out they're doing just fine. Search numbers growing. They are using AI now in search. Have you?
Avoid it.
tried the Google you can't are you eating rocks? Are you putting Elmer's glue on your pizza?
My pizza.
They've gotten past that now, yes or no?
Yes, they have gotten past it. Although there was that headline, I don't know if you guys caught it this week, but people noticed that with AI overviews, if you type any saying like never like a badger twice or whatever, and then you type meaning afterwards, it's like, oh, this saying means
it makes up an answer.
Roll with it. So that's kind of fun. But
it was really bad. And this was only a couple weeks ago, so I imagine it's still bad with anything involving location. I wanted to find something, what was it, like swimming programs in northern New Jersey. It could not deal with location. It like acknowledged where I was asking them for, but it was giving me ones that were like down the street from me, which is California. And then even when I'm like, no, near this town in New Jersey, it like was finding stuff like at the other end of the state. So no, the AIs. Well, actually, that was a complaint about the search. Maybe not even the AI, but
they're not wrong though. You really can't lick a badger twice.
You can't. I think it's hard to get it the first time. So.
They don't like it. They really don't. This was hysterical. So they came up, never wash a rabbit in a cabbage. An AI overview said, the saying, never wash a rabbit in the cabbage, is a humorous way of saying that bathing rabbits is unnecessary and potentially harmful.
Okay, can I share something that's totally exposing myself? But sometimes when I'm writing and I want to include some sort of saying and I just want to make sure that I have it correctly, I will Google it just to like make sure that I didn't make that up. And I have noticed that AI overviews will always support whatever I've typed and been like, yeah, this means this. But then I scroll, thankfully I scroll and I see that no other result has that exact saying. There might be like, if I'm right, then it shows it. If I'm wrong, it shows a tweak. So
it's a new way of hallucinating.
Yeah, exactly. So,
we're all so thrilled.
But yeah, the AI overviews are everywhere. To the dismay of every publisher. Yeah.
That's an issue, and I have to say I am guilty because I use Perplexity or ChatGPT for a lot of my searching. And honestly, I'll end up never going to the site. They extract the good stuff from your beautiful site.
Yep.
Sometimes they'll give you credit. They'll say Abrar Al-Hidi says, but usually not.
Usually not. Yeah.
And you don't get the link.
Exactly.
I'm picky. There's a couple of instances where I really needed something that was that brief. And what it is ending up summarizing is maybe also something I could see in the snippet preview. And that's all I needed. But I don't trust the AI most of the time. So, and in fact, one of the things I do appreciate is it's got like little links for where it got whatever it is attempting to tell you is reality.
Right.
And it's necessary, like, especially if it sounds good, I need to follow that link because I don't trust what it's giving me otherwise. So in small instances where like, yeah, thank you, I don't need to go click on that thing that I just needed a teeny tiny bit from. But if I needed more than a teeny tiny bit, I have to go follow it because I can't trust it. And and sometimes you can tell because you look at the summary and then you look at the results and they don't match.
I mean, that's true too. I mean, there's definitely different levels here of search and information processing that people go through. If you're going to buy, a brand new car, you're probably not just going to look at ask the AI. It gives you a little paragraph and you're like, all right, I'm going to go buy that one. You're probably going to then go down the funnel of like reading reviews and then maybe going to Reddit, reading personal experiences and all this. I will say though, this idea that, well, sometimes the AI isn't accurate. It's like, well, luckily we have no issue with disinformation with just search.
Yeah, a lot of humans are often inaccurate. I mean, how often do you ask for directions and they send you the wrong way? I mean, humans
are as bad. This one? Just do the research yourself. Oh. It's like a common expression on the internet, like, oh, you don't believe in climate science? I did the research. And it's like, so, I mean, people are already searching and getting very wrong answers.
You did see the MyPillow guy use an AI to write a brief in his case.
Oh my God.
Oh, I didn't.
The judge found nearly 30 mistakes, including cases that do not exist.
Again, at this point, this
learn your lesson.
Yeah. I mean, this is the first couple of times because like one of the first was Michael Cohen, or his lawyer, got hallucinated 5 cases. But and they kind of got off lightly. There was a little bit of sanctions for some of them, of like, I think they had to pay the other side some money for the time spent responding to it. But, okay, fine, that mistakes were made. To still be making the mistakes at this point is inexcusable. And I've done this a couple times where I speak to some law students about, I do a day class on AI and legal ethics, and I run through the ethical rules governing the practice of law and sort of talk about different ways that they're going to implicate that using AI in some context is going to implicate one of these laws. And we talk through them and work through them. And at this point, there is no excuse to just forge ahead and being oblivious and pretend that the ethical rules aren't implicated at all, because they're almost all implicated, not just the case hallucinations.
You know what I always say? You can't lick a badger twice.
Always.
I think that's pretty obvious by now. Let's take a little break, and we'll have more to talk about in just a bit. You're watching This Week in Tech. Our show this time brought to you by our friends at OutSystems, the leading AI-powered application and agent development platform. For more than 20 years, this has been a long time. The mission of OutSystems is to give every company the power to innovate through software. You know that if you're on an IT team, you're faced usually with 2 choices. It's the old build or buy conundrum, right? You buy off-the-shelf SaaS products for speed, but you lose flexibility and certainly differentiation because everybody else is using it too. Or you build custom software at great expense and in time and resources. Well, there's now a third. It's not just build or buy. Now AI forges the way for another path. The fusion of AI, low code, which is something OutSystems has been doing for 2 decades, and DevSecOps automation into a single development platform. Your teams suddenly will build custom applications using AI agents as easily as buying generic off-the-shelf sameware. And the good thing about OutSystems, flexibility, security, and scalability, it comes standard. With AI-powered low code, teams can build custom, future-proof applications at the speed of buying. Fully automated architecture, security, integrations, all built in, data flows there, permissions, all the stuff you need, you got to have. OutSystems is the last platform you need to buy because you can use it to build anything and customize and extend your core systems. Build your future with OutSystems. Visit outsystems.com/twit to learn more. That's outsystems.com/twit. We thank them so much for supporting This Week in Tech, and you support us when you go to that address, outsystems.com/twit. Thank you, OutSystems. One more Google story I left out, and I feel bad about this one. Those Nest thermostats you bought back in the day, they're going to stop supporting them on October 25th. The first and second generation Nest Learning thermostats. And it's going to completely stop launching new Nest products in Europe. So I had a bunch of those thermostats. I didn't bring them when we moved, but I'm glad I didn't. What do you do if you have a Nest thermostat, first or second generation?
That's crazy. Yeah, I mean, I used to have a Nest thermostat, and they were great. Gorgeous hardware. Yeah, I mean, it worked really well, and there's like no reason to replace it outside of forced obsolescence here, which is really kind of disturbing. So
it'll still work as a thermostat. You can turn the knob.
You just got the surface,
but it won't receive updates. It won't be supported in the apps, the Nest and Home apps.
If it's not receiving updates, this is a liability to have in your house because it's still connected to the network, and then anybody else is resetting your
Good
heating.
Point.
Yeah.
I mean, it's not the worst thing in the world, but
you can tell it to turn the Wi-Fi off.
Yeah, turn off the Wi-Fi, and then you're going to have, basically a thermostat.
A knob.
A knob
on your wall.
A beautiful, beautiful knob.
Welcome back to 1950.
Yeah.
Retro. It's great. Yeah.
It's just something, I always do these stories because it's something to remember when you buy an IoT device. You're buying software that's going to, at some point, the company's going to say, yeah, that's it on that one. Pretty much it is that way from now on, right? You said that PC shipments are going up, Daniel. Is that because of tariffs?
So some caveats here, right? So we use the proper word here, shipments, right? So shipments are definitely different than sales. And so we have seen I believe it's between, well, depend if you're going with Canalys or Counterpoint, I think it was.
Yeah,
it's between 6 and 10%.
That's a big jump. But that's people shipping their PCs into the US for later sale. It's putting them in the supply chain. Yeah.
So there's a lot of thought here that, of course, companies are building up stock because of the threat of tariffs, because those tariffs could literally double the price of a laptop, in which case no one's going to buy them. But if they're already here, then it's not an issue. In fact, Microsoft is, we've been reporting going to be launching new Surface devices. They presumably brought a bunch already into the country here that will last them a couple months for sales. But if this goes on for 6 months, then they're going to run out again, so then there's an issue there. So, this is good. They are expecting, like I've mentioned this before, there's 3 things kind of really driving this. One, Windows 10 is coming to end of life. For consumers, technically it's a security thing and they should upgrade or switch to
October,
a different laptop.
25th, it's the end of the line for Windows 10.
So, yeah. And so, but for enterprise, this is critical, right? They don't really have a choice. They need to go buy new laptops. We're also coming up on the, 5 years after COVID, where so many companies bought new laptops for employees.
That's what depressed the market for those 5 years, is that people bought up in 2020 and then they said, well, we're good for a while. But
companies
5 years, is that when people typically kind of renew?
That's the upgrade cycle pretty much. Obviously, companies want it to be less than that. That's always a challenge, but it's usually about 5 years. So you have that. And then, of course, you have the Copilot Copilot Plus PCs, which is starting to drive. Now, up until very recently, there wasn't much reason to get one of those PCs, but now with recall and click to do and some other features that are coming, there's a lot more argument to kind of get this PCs, especially for businesses who will evaluate them. I would also just say, laptops for the first time, and this includes Apple, of course, too, with these new processors, we got to the point where this is like the dream laptop. You can get 3K
Are you talking
screens,
specifically about the Snapdragons?
Yeah, but
ARM?
even Intel too. I mean, what I'm saying is you're getting legit 10 to 15 hours of battery life now out of a laptop.
Even on the Intels?
Yeah. I'm actually really surprised with. I'm using the ThinkPad X9. So it's the Core Ultra Gen 2. They did a lot. The gap between what Intel and Qualcomm is in terms of battery life is pretty narrow now. Wow. I'll still say Qualcomm has advantages in heat, and I think they're a little bit more responsive, in my opinion. But Intel is still doing quite well here. But you can now get a laptop that gets 10 hours of legit battery life, that has a beautiful display, really good, quad speakers. It's this is what we've always dreamed of a laptop of actually being, versus it gets me about 4 to 5 hours of battery life, right? And that the cameras are really good, and now you're getting this AI stuff. So it'll be interesting to see if consumers buy them. But
what happened? Why this leap in technology? Did Qualcomm drive this with the release of the Snapdragon Elite?
Well, I think Apple did, really, right?
Apple
bringing
silicon.
over the A series, developing the A series, and then translating that to the M series, really, there was no comparison between an M1 and an Intel processor.
It's
really just true. Night and day.
Yeah.
But now Qualcomm has come out with its Snapdragon X, and they're going to come out with their Gen 2 this fall, which I heard is a significant jump. They're using the Orion version 3 cores, where they're skipping version 2 for those. It's going to be very
This is why competition is so good, right? It drives people to do better. Now, Intel's been struggling mightily.
Yeah. Not so much in the PC chips. They struggle because the fabs are extremely expensive and they're trying to build that out. They also have some other businesses, including server. They really kind of missed out on AI, so that those aren't doing well. But if you look at the numbers, even on their latest reports, the chip sales for laptops and PCs have actually been positive for them.
Interesting.
It's the rest of the business that's been struggling. So, but I'm actually really surprised with their Gen 2 chips for Core Ultra. They're a lot better than I expected them to be.
Yeah.
But I mean, it's a great time to buy this hardware. I'm using right now, actually I have it right here. This is the Asus, who I was never a huge Asus fan, but this is the ZenBook A14. And it was announced at $899. It's actually going for $999. But the thing gets like 15 hours of battery life. It has an OLED display. It's absolutely gorgeous. And it's going to come down in price, I think, pretty soon as well. And it's just like for below $1,000, you can get a laptop that I regularly use, even though I have like $2,000 or $3,000 laptops to use.
How much is AI driving these sales? Are people looking for machines that can do AI?
I think businesses are more so than consumers. I think consumers are definitely like, it's a buzz thing. They don't understand its practical applications. What do you mean? I already have ChatGPT. Why do I need So I think Microsoft needs to, something like recall and click to do. Some of these features as they come online could potentially drive sales, but I think we still need that quote unquote killer app for consumers to be able to see that. But we're seeing more and more, you're going to start to see some major like photography and video apps start to use the NPU.
Yes.
Which is really going to be the big deal here, because NPUs are so much more efficient than a GPU for processing AI. And when you're using, local processing for images or video, like that NPU, it's going to just make a world of difference for creators. And I think that's really where you're going to start to see this stuff, is for people who use their laptops for media creation. You're going to have so much more advantage with AI and specifically the NPU hardware that's built onto these chips.
That's a really good point. I was thinking, most people use the AI on the server. They're not running agent AI locally. They're not running local models. But they are in some cases with software, things like image editing software that is local.
Yeah. Topaz I use. They Topaz
have an amazing
photo
tool. Yes.
Yeah, their upscaler app is insane. If no one knows, go look up Topaz AI.
I've played with it
a few
bit.
applications.
Wow. Yeah.
Yeah. So like I find photos from 10 years ago, whatever, digital, they'd be like little tiny things, and you can upscale and create some really good quality work out of them. They just literally came out a couple days ago with their ARM64 version for Qualcomm chips for one of theirs. And, you're going to start to see them start to use the NPUs more on this stuff. But like this is
so you're going back to
software.
Old images that you took and using the Topaz AI upscaler to fix them, and you're getting good. Here's an example from their page of a bird, and with the so it's a little blurry, right? It's probably a telephoto shot. With the upscaler, the detail and the feathers and everything suddenly becomes clear. I mean, it's a noticeable difference. You're seeing stuff like that in your work?
Actually, kind of like a personal story, but my best friend's mother passed away a number of years ago, and this was back before we barely had digital cameras. And so I had a smartphone photo, or he had a smartphone photo that was really just not great quality. And he gave it to me, and I used this app and played around with it. And I was able to create a very usable recreation of that image that looks significantly better. So being able to do that with old photos and old digital photos is really kind of just cool technology. But they also have general photo and video editors too,
right,
that just do all the kind of Photoshop stuff as well.
Topaz has been around a long time as a plugin company, but they've really jumped on this AI bandwagon, and I think they're doing some. So is is Adobe. I mean, so is everybody, really.
Yep. Although it's interesting, Adobe's primarily using the GPU. They're not really committing to NPU usage because I think most of their audience is so built in to using the GPUs already, whereas someone like Topaz is new, but they're leaning heavy into AI, which benefits the NPU more so.
Do they have hardware requirements, or is it just slower if you don't have the horsepower?
I think it's just probably slower. Because right now I use Topaz, but I have a 4080 GPU, and you can hear the tensor cores going when it's doing stuff, which is kind of cool. But with an NPU, it's going to be a lot different. Yeah, I love the tensor core sound. It's so great. And you're going to see stuff like even like virus scanning, email, all this kind of stuff will be offloaded to the NPU. A lot of security software that runs in the background on your computer can be offloaded to the NPU. It's going to be much more efficient.
So you really are going to want to have that capability on your next computer.
Yeah.
How about more RAM as well, right? Is that?
Yeah. The Qualcomm laptops all ship with default 16 gigs of RAM. There's no such thing as an 8
Is that enough?
Yeah, I think so. Although Zach Bowden just wrote an article on our site talking about he thinks 24 gigs of RAM should be the new standard.
Yeah.
Are we going backwards? Like, weren't we going to a point where all the chipping had been separate and we were busy putting it all on one main chip? And now we're sort of like, oh, wait, separate might have actually been the way to go. And so
it's still, I mean, it's a little bit of both. They're still technically on one SoC, but it is, they have, and Intel's on this too, they call them actually chiplets. They've actually broken up the components, but the reason they've done that is so they can shut them off when they're not being used for greater power efficiency, which is really kind of cool. So that's how Intel does a lot of its power efficiencies. It turns off certain parts of the chip. And we're talking like milliseconds of time, but over time that adds up to a lot. So when you buy like a Qualcomm laptop, you're getting their GPU, their NPU, and their CPU, as well as their image processing, everything all on one single chip. So it's still there. You can't pull them out separately, but
and then if you want a heavy duty machine, you might get a discrete GPU from NVIDIA down the road, but those are very expensive. Apple has this kind of secret thing that I think, the secret sauce that I think might help them in the next couple of years, which is all their memory is unified memory. So it is available to both the GPU and the CPU, which means you can have, and as many of my Macs are 64 gigs, some of them are more, you could have a 92 gig, 96 gig Mac, and most of that memory would be available to the AI in the GPU. Yeah. And that is...
We're seeing that with AMD. Some AMD chips, you can do that
too.
The
unified memory is really a very powerful tool in certain situations, having more RAM available to the GPU. Apple's solution to this tariff problem is to, and this is a surprise, say they're going to start moving their phone manufacturer away from China to India.
I believe that's something they've been toying with for a while, is this idea of diversifying their manufacturing. But obviously this is the big push that gets them to like really ramp that up.
Yeah. They like their laptops are made in Vietnam now. They have iPhone assembly in Brazil, India, Vietnam, as well as China. But they're now saying we want to make every US iPhone in India.
Yeah. That's
a big change.
Drastic. Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
Ironically, some of this was due to tariffs. Brazil and India have big tariffs for hardware not made in those countries. So Apple initially opened plants there so that they would be able to make them locally. But now it's turning out, that worked out pretty well. There's also been a lot of fear about what's going to happen to Taiwan, I think. Yeah. And Apple's chips are made in Taiwan by TSMC. So, yeah, it makes sense for a company to do this. I'm surprised that Apple is as far along the path as they say they are. They say as soon as next year, they will be able to assemble all U.S. sold iPhones in India.
Yeah, I guess the really drastic thing is how quickly they're pushing this.
They have to double the iPhone output to do that.
Yeah, no, it's wild. And I believe I read about something related to them also bolstering US-based manufacturing too, which is interesting.
So, well, this is, the whole point of tariffs was to get the iPhone made in the US, right?
Yeah.
That ain't gonna happen.
Yeah.
I think it's pretty clear that we don't have the capability for a variety of reasons. So really, in a way, it's backfiring because now Apple's going to make them in India.
Right. Another foreign country, yeah.
Yeah. It didn't bring those jobs to the United States. Where it can, Apple's making stuff in the US, but it's a very small number of things.
Yeah. That didn't work.
Yeah. I mean, maybe in 10 years we will be making in the US. I don't know. But experts seem to agree that making an iPhone in the United States is non-starter, at least for a while.
I mean, the strength for China here was that not only did they do the manufacturing, they supplied all the parts, including the rare earth metals for these devices. And this was all in like Shenzhen. So if you ever want to just go build something electronic, if you go to Shenzhen,
it's all there.
It's all there. You can get your screws, you can get your screens, you can get the glue, you can get the factory to assemble it all. You can get the stuff for the chips. Yeah, your processors come from Taiwan. it's all right there, and that all reduces the costs. And even if you move to India, it's like, okay, but you're still going to have to import, various components there.
Almost all of them will come from China, right?
Yeah.
You're just assembling in India.
Yeah. And that ends up, the most important thing is to not make the iPhone more expensive for consumers. But
right.
It looks like that's going to be like.
Right. Yeah. 60 million iPhones sold in the U.S. annually. And they hope they're going to have to not only double their output, they're going to have to build 2 more factories in India to do this. And by the way, the factories are being built by the Chinese company that makes the iPhones in China, Foxconn. So, and others, but Foxconn is building. Tata Electronics, which is an Indian company, is also building assembly plants.
Yeah, the expertise to manufacture those, to make the plants, who manufactures those is an entire skill. They say we don't even have the companies here in the US who could even make the plants and all the tools to assemble this stuff, let alone then build it out and then hire all the staff and bring everything in. It's a very complicated thing. And China really has dominated that market, kind of closed the loop on everything there.
Right. There is still a 26% trade tariff with India. So Apple does not dodge the bullet entirely, but it's better than 145%, I guess.
Bit, yeah.
Which I think at that point, no one would buy an iPhone if we're 145% more expensive. That's just not going to happen.
Yeah.
But even 26 is a big jump.
I think people would still buy an iPhone. Just not
really?
As many, just not as many.
So if an iPhone costs $2,500 or $3,000,
it becomes a luxury good. It becomes like a rich people thing.
Yeah.
But then what if somebody
cut our rate?
I'm not that rich. I know.
What if somebody pays you to use an Android phone and then you
give me $10 a week and I'll think about it.
I didn't even buy one of the flippy phones that I really, really want to have because I want a smaller phone, and I wanted the ones that could bend in the middle so they fit in my pocket better. Yeah. And I couldn't spend that money on the phone.
Oh, you didn't mean a flip fold. You mean a flip phone. You mean a folding phone.
A folding phone.
There's a big difference. If you meant something like this is the Samsung Flip.
Right. I wanted something like that. But the price point is just insane, where I can't justify spending that money on a phone and carrying around something worth that much money in my pocket. It just didn't make sense for us. It was worth also more than my laptop. So I'm built to sort of protect the laptop because, that's the expensive one and the phone is the cheaper. And so it's really upside down if it's.
But Nito's right. I know people with $200,000 watches on their wrists, which seems to me insane.
For a number of reasons.
But, that's, I guess, a way of showing your affluence, I guess, right? As a $3,000 iPhone.
Well, and then wait till Apple makes a foldable phone itself and then see how much you spend.
Next year, that's what the rumor is, next year. And that will be, that's another way you can handle that is by making it so different features, so different that you can't compare prices, right? Of course it's $3,000. It folds.
Well, and the $3,000 for a phone is not... There's still a lot of economic harm going here because it's not like Apple would love to sell the number of iPhones it sells for more money than it sells them. But at a certain point, you stop selling the units. And so, you sell one unit for all the money that they need to make, but they don't get all that $3,000. That's going to go to the tariffs and much more expensive production. So Apple is going to basically be losing their ability to profit because their profit margin on every unit is not going to be much bigger than it is, but there's going to be so many fewer units sold because the market for $3,000 phones is tinier than the market for the phones at the current price point.
All right, let's take a little break. Then I'll ask you if you got your Nintendo Switch. But first, you're watching This Week in Tech with Kathy Gellis and Abrar Al-Hiti. I like to throw Benito. You're good, Benito, though. You keep up.
That was fast.
He's good, isn't he? I do a different order each time, and it still doesn't throw him. And Daniel Rubino from look at that from Windows Central. Very good. Benito's the best. Our show today brought to you by Drata. You've heard me talk about Drata before. If you're leading risk and compliance at your company, hey, that's a tough job. You got my sympathy. You're wearing at least 10 hats at the same time, managing security risks. You got compliance demands, regulatory demands, budget constraints, all while trying not to be seen as the roadblock that's slowing down business, right? But GRC isn't just about checking boxes. It's a revenue driver. It can be really a revenue driver. Tell your boss that builds trust. You got to do that, right? Accelerates deals, strengthens security. Compliance really is a seal of approval. That's why modern GRC leaders turn to Drata, a trust management platform that automates the tedious tasks so you can focus on reducing risk, proving compliance, and scaling your program. Life is a lot easier with Drata. You can automate security questionnaires. You can automate evidence collection, compliance tracking. You'll stay audit ready with real-time monitoring. And you can simplify security reviews with Drata's Trust Center and AI-powered questionnaire assistance. Instead of spending hours proving trust, build it faster with Drata. Ready to modernize your GRC program? Visit drata.com/weekintech to learn more. Okay, that's a different URL now, so make sure you get it right. Drata.com/weekintech, WEEKINTECH. Thank you, Drata, for sponsoring This Week in Tech. Did you get online to buy your Switch? I have a feeling, I don't know why, I'm looking at you, Daniel Rubino, like you might be a Switch user.
Steam Deck.
Steam Deck.
And if not that, I'll use the Asus ROG Ally because it's
which is just a Steam Deck under running Windows. Basically.
There's no Mario Kart on Steam, Daniel. There's no Mario Kart.
There's no Mario Kart. How are you going to live?
Yeah.
It's funny because I actually do have a Switch. I bought one years ago before there was a Steam Deck. And I even bought the Pokemon limited edition one, even though I don't care about Pokemon or know anything about it. But I love the colors. And I loved it. I used it, but I never used it really to play Nintendo IP. I can't stand Nintendo IP. I liked Luigi's Haunted Mansion. That was about the only one. But I used it because, and to Nintendo's credit, they got a lot of independent games on their store that was basically like a Valve Steam store light. And so I used that for a long time, and I generally enjoyed it. But then Steam Deck came out, and it just gave me everything I really wanted.
See, I bought the Animal Crossing version.
Oh, yeah.
See the colors? And I have to say, in COVID, this was kind of a lifesaver because I could play games on my Switch and zone out, right? And just build my little Animal Crossing village. But I hadn't played in quite a few years. It's apparently sold out now, the Switch 2 pre-orders at everywhere. GameStop, Walmart, Target, Best Buy. And many of the retailers went down during the pre-orders, which, by the way, were delayed. They opened them, after all, on the 24th this week. Was going to be April 9th. You could only pre-order it if you had a longtime Switch account and you'd played 50 hours or more of Switch games in the past year. So they really eliminated scalpers, which I think was very smart. Nevertheless, the stores went down. There were crowds. It was crazy. I still am waiting for my email from Nintendo to allow me to buy one. I hope I can get one. They did not raise the prices, which some thought they might due to tariffs on Japan. Still selling the console for $450 and the bundle with Mario Kart World for $500. But good luck getting it. Did anybody, chat room, did you get your Switch 2s? I want to know, anybody? Yeah. I feel like, to me, I like the Switch better than the Steam Deck because the games are made for that size screen and that device. Whereas Steam Deck, I was playing games that were made for big screens and big computers, and it felt
it
cramped.
depends. I mean, they do have the Steam Deck verified thing. So when you're looking at to buy games, they can be optimized for Steam Deck. Like developers can do that.
Yes.
And you get a little thing. So it depends. If you're playing like really old games, you may struggle to do that. I have had no issues with it. I think Steam Deck is the best of both worlds. Well, so long as you're not into Nintendo IP. But
what I like about Steam Deck Zelda, okay. Yeah. No, I tried. So I'm I play Valheim on a 55-inch monitor, and I tried to play on the Steam Deck. Same with the Xbox. I can't really play it on the Xbox.
I think that's the thing, Leo. Like, you have to look for games that are good on Steam Deck.
Designed
stuff like Hades. Hades might be a good game on Steam Deck.
Hades is great on the Steam Deck too.
Exactly. That's what I mean. That's what I mean.
Yeah. And so, I mean, on the Switch as well, though. So,
Switch. Yeah.
I
think the advantage was that, especially now with the Windows PC versions coming out, there's just a lot more options. Like, I had the first Switch, as I just mentioned, but the ergonomics on that thing are atrocious. So I had to buy the clip-on handles for it. The display resolution was terrible. The audio wasn't great. Steam Deck, made all that better. And now you have with the PC versions, Lenovo's Legion Go is an 8.8-inch display. It's huge, right?
Yeah, that might be.
You have all these choices. Yeah. So you have all these different options, which I think that's the beauty of a PC market, is you can get these different designs and choices to what you prefer.
Right.
Whereas the Switch, you're just going to get what they like. I'd even like how the controllers came off of the Switch. I understood the purpose, but I never used it like that. But I hated it because it just made the device super creaky to use. So when it came out the light version, I was even more enthralled, because I'm like, oh, okay, this is what I want. I just want a handheld device, not something that turns into a console.
Right. Actually, I use it that way, though. In fact, one of the reasons I wanted to get the new Switch is because it's 4K on my TV. If I dock it, I don't know. Oh, here I am in my little town. I'm ready to go wandering. Oh, there's a message. My phone is ringing. Whatever could it be? It's Timmy. Okay, this is a really dopey game, and I apologize. Can't play it on Steam Deck, though, I gotta say. So Japanese. All right. What else? I got distracted. I apologize. You wanted to talk about the $20,000 pickup.
Oh, I just thought it was interesting.
So this is one way to get around tariffs: buy something made in the U.S., like this $20,000 pickup truck.
I saw the article for it, and I saw some people speaking yes, if I needed something, that's exactly what I would get. And I was reading it, and I came away from the article really rooting for their success.
Yeah.
Where one of the things they're basically talking about, and kind of getting back to our conversation about bundling, is that cars have gotten gratuitously overcomplicated, and the function of what you need is not that significant. You need something that goes with fuel efficiency and safety, and this has enough modularity to it that everything that you want to have your vehicle do on top of that, you can still have that happen, but you can pick the stuff that you want, and you can do it a lot more via aftermarket things. You can do it yourself, that you don't have. And in that article, they talk about from the founders talking about the car companies keep ramming so much down your throat. I think they call it as the curation of what you get when you buy a car. Is
my BMW initially, they wanted to rent you seat warmers, it's built in, but you had to pay a monthly fee to use them. Fortunately, there were such complaints that they abandoned that. But it is the case that as soon as you go in, you're getting upsold. But you want the better stereo, right? You want the leather seats, right? You want the paddle shifters, right?
Not just the upselling. It's also that what they were talking about is you'd get these combinations. Let's say you want the shiniest and the premiest of all of it. And it's you get it in two colors, because the way it's curated, if you want that package, then you can get this one with these two things. And you're still not getting the choice that you want to have. Whereas if you start with just sort of the basics, you've got the chassis of the vehicle, it's got the wheels, it's got the engine. Now you can add things to it to make it the car that you really
don't worry
need.
about the color. It's not painted.
And so they're thinking that basically that's going to make financial sense. You can still have a pretty one. You achieve your prettiness not by paint. Because the Verge article, wrap it, because they were also talking about in the Verge article that building a paint factory, one of the reasons the cost.
Well, the paint shop's very expensive in the assembly line.
To build a paint factory.
That's why the Cybertruck is unpainted.
Right. So what they're talking about is, and then there's also talking about how the factories themselves can be much, much smaller buildings, like much easier and cheaper to build the factories because they don't do the steel. I don't follow this completely, but like the way the metal works in a normal car, they're not using that material where they don't need to, and the material they are using, you can use a much smaller footprint that doesn't need to have such a big factory in order
they're
to
molded
produce it.
of plastic.
Yeah, and I was wondering about that. They said they're passing all the crash test things, but they're also saying in the
injection molded
article,
polypropylene composite material, which makes them more durable and scratch resistant. So maybe you don't need to paint that.
And they're saying
Saturn did that. Remember the Saturns had plastic panels? Yeah.
Yeah. So there's a whole bunch of things where, like, if we just break down a car to what we basically need, its basic simplicity, it's going to be a lot cheaper to produce. And you can still end up with something fancy if you want, but you'll end up
where
with
they're smart. They don't have a radio or stereo or entertainment system. They just have a place for you to put your phone.
It's all people need, right? Like these
But
days.
really, isn't that right? I mean,
and no one wants a touchscreen either. So
yeah, the phone does everything I want it to do. It'd be nice if I could maybe put a tablet there or something, so I have a little more real estate.
They're talking about modularity. So basically, you can add a graphic screen if you want. You can add Bluetooth speakers. So like everything, because I was kind of like, a car with no radio, really? Like I remember my dad's car in 1981, like that was kind of annoying. We didn't have a radio in it, but
it's electric.
We survived, and you can add one, and it's also going to be like third party modularity is like a huge thing to have in cars. Also
that's kind of interesting. That's a kind of interesting idea, I think.
And
it's Chinese.
Right to repair is built in. Like they basically will have that, unless it's involving like a safety system or electrical or something like that. You can do it yourself, and we've got YouTube videos for you to watch. Like they really it's like what a car really should be, and we've just gotten away from it because we've just put all this overtone on how we do cars.
I will also say one of the big things, and this is still why I'll defend Tesla a bit, was they got rid of dealerships.
Yes,
dealerships
everybody
are really
hates them.
the big. Yeah. That's the big block to a lot of this stuff.
Right.
Like the reason why it's so hard to get the upgrades you want and all that, it's because you have to go in, you have to negotiate. It's just a nightmare. I still, I bought my Tesla in 2019. It was everything I wanted. I just went online, clicked I wanted it. Here's $200. Gave them my old car, did the financing, all within like 20 minutes. Picked a car I want. I have to talk to a human being. And then I got a text message that the car was ready, and I just went and picked it up, and that was it. And it was just like, it goes to show you what you can do. It's even with software updates, right? They just go right to the car. But it's the automotive companies and the dealerships. I mean, if you guys remember, I'm sure, Leo, you remember it, they tried to block Tesla sales in Texas.
Absolutely.
Because they didn't have it, because of the dealership.
In some states, it's against the law to sell a car without a dealer.
Wow.
Yeah.
Because the dealers went and lobbied the state legislatures saying, no, it would be unsafe.
Right.
Shouldn't be able to do that.
So I'm all for this. It reminds me of, it's basically the PC model, right? If, PCs came out, and now look at, like, especially for gaming, right? Like there's like 9,000 million accessories you can buy for a desktop PC. You can build them the way you want. You can have glass screens and all this LED stuff. It's all because of people came out with the format and then allowed innovation to happen through third-party developers, and it's basically an open system. So I think this is great for cars. You start off with the basic thing that you can afford. And this is also good for people who can't, they want a car, but they can't afford a $40,000 one, but they want one, and they can build it out over time as they get more money. Like that's
$27,500 before your rebate, and those rebates are scheduled to expire. So it may end up being more expensive. But I think this is one of the benefits of an electric vehicle, because basically they're golf carts. And you can just put more. You want to put a Tesla is a golf cart with a fancy computer system on it. Really, I figured that out when I got my first Tesla. I went, that's all it really is.
It's really no maintenance.
And there's no maintenance.
Tires.
Yeah. They say they can make it safely. I liked yours before the show. We were talking a little bit about it, Daniel, and you said this is going to create a a raft of third-party businesses based on should it be successful based on upgrading this. The best-selling vehicle in the United States by far is the Ford F-150 pickup. It's a big pickup, but people like trucks, right? They want a truck.
They don't need them.
They don't need them.
Every day I see people with pickups. I'm like, why do you have a pickup? You don't need a pickup.
I kind of want to. It's every once in a while you want to haul something, a little larger. You want to take the sofa down to the dump or whatever. It's kind of nice to have one. It's good to have a friend with a pickup, I found.
You really only need the friend with the truck. You don't need the truck itself.
Right. But
right.
Hey, somebody's got to buy it. Your friend's got to buy it.
I mean, what's important though for this though is like the standards of the pieces need to be set so that if other companies start making modular cars, all the pieces work for all the different cars.
Wouldn't that be awesome?
Then
they say, for instance, they have an SUV upgrade that adds two seats.
That's the PC market you're talking about, though, Daniel. Like all the parts work together with all the other companies.
They're
they all work together.
Yeah. So we need EV compatibles. Like PC compatibles.
The only difference is, I would say, is the PC market, that functionality grew with the PC market. We're already talking about an existing market of huge car manufacturers.
Big market, yeah.
And you'd have to get them to all agree to step back, So, but if this was the first time we're talking about cars and like, oh, have you heard about getting a car? I would say that you'd have the chance here to make that happen. But now that you already have all these businesses, I think getting them all to agree on that would be, unless the government forced it, but
Well, I mean, what's the evolution that will happen for this? So you've got this company that's going to take a leadership position. I think they're going to decide, given their ethos and also the economics, that is in their interest to have open standards for their cars because it'll help sell more cars and they'll still be first to market on cars that can take these standards. So I think they are actually, one of the things I really liked about it is I think they're betting the business on business choices that are actually much better for the public and the market. And I want that to succeed. I want that to be the market where we stop having everything being so monopolized and proprietary. So this is really exciting. And maybe with that company leadership, they will see it is in their interest to basically, we've innovated it, but here's our open standard.
So we buried the lead on this a little bit. I did so intentionally. First of all, the name of the company, Slate Truck. It's based in Michigan. And who's the primary investor? Jeff Bezos. Yeah.
I mean, it is the Amazon model in a lot of ways. I bet you
suddenly it gets a lot more interesting, doesn't it?
Yeah.
Well, I would say
get a Prime delivery.
Yeah.
I mean, but I think it's not that I think that everything he does is smart. He's going to find a nut every so often, and I think this is a smart play, and I think there's a reason that money is getting attracted to it, because if this succeeds, it's a path to success that's been underexploited. And if it can succeed, I think it's good for everybody.
So Bezos hired kind of a skunkworks, or built a kind of a skunkworks in 2022 called Rebuild Manufacturing. And this came out of that skunkworks. It was kind of a spin-off. But there are other investors, including the owner of the Dodgers, and the CEO of Guggenheim Partners, Mark Walter, Thomas Tull, lead investor. So it's an interesting idea. I wish them well. They've raised a lot of money. This is not just some guy in a garage who said, I think I could build a cheap electric truck. This is an interesting play. And
I'm sure Bezos would also like it because he can give Elon Musk a bit of a ribbing.
Oh, he loves doing that.
Since they're already competing with the space stuff now, it would be the car market, right? But it goes to show you, I mean, for all of Musk's, issues, Tesla did significantly disrupt the car market, and I think for the better. There's still a lot that needs to be done, but this is
I give him a lot of credit. I hate doing it, but I give him a lot of credit.
Sometimes the things that we want to give him credit for were things that other people did and that he's taking the credit for. So
maybe, and he certainly got a lot of federal funding to make it possible. Mm-hmm. But I think without Tesla, I don't know if you would have the EV boom. The first EV I bought was a Tesla Model X. And I'll be honest, this was back in 2015, before we really knew the full Elon story. I was kind of moved. I was in tears. I took a tour of the factory in Fremont, and I thought, this is amazing. This guy is changing the world.
And they were built here in the United States. Was unheard of. And that was a weird thing too. Because I was just going to say, sorry.
No, I would just attribute it more to the bones of the company. I think the reason where this falls down is when we think it's the cult of personality and that his personal weighing in and his personal decisions did this.
His personal money
that
wrote
would
the
be
check.
the differentiation I'd make. There's some really cool things with what Tesla innovated without making it the cult of personality.
He wrote the checks. It's just like Jeff Bezos. If Slate Truck becomes a thing, Jeff's going to take the lion's share of the credit, even though he's done none of the engineering. And I think it's the same thing. There is something to be said for the guy who puts up takes the risk and puts up the money.
I think he was also a pretty good marketer, though. So we can't take.
And he's a very good. I mean, we do have a couple of Tesla stories we'll get to in just a moment, but first we're going to take a word from our sponsor. It's great to have all of you. Great to have you, Club Twit members. Thanks to Club Twit, we're able to stream our show now on 8 different platforms. So if you want to watch live on a Sunday afternoon from 2 to 5 p.m. Pacific, 5 to 8 Eastern, you can. Club Twit members can watch in our Club Twit Discord, but we've also got YouTube, we've got Twitch, we've got TikTok. Is the TikTok up today? We put in the TikTok computer over here.
Yeah,
I don't know if they...
Not yet up today.
Not yet? Okay, we're still working on that. TikTok wants us to use TikTok to stream it, so we have a dedicated machine over there in the corner that's going to do that soon. TikTok, X.com. We've got LinkedIn, we've got Facebook, and we've got Kick. So 7 right now, soon to be 8 different platforms. If you're not yet a member of Club Twit, I really would love to have you in the club. It makes a big difference to us. Lisa just told me it is 25% of our revenue now, so it's a significant portion of what we do. And we need it because the ad revenue, as much as we have, does not pay for everything we do. And we want to do more. And thanks to the club, we're able to. We have some great events. The Untitled Linux Show, which is in our club, just celebrated its 200th episode. Congratulations to the guys. We've got a photo workshop with Chris Marquardt coming up on Thursday. We're going to assess your seasonal pictures. Seasonal was the topic. Friday, May 2nd at 1 p.m. Pacific. We also have Stacy's Book Club coming up on the 16th. Really good book. I do recommend it. I've just finished it. The word for world is forest by Ursula K. Le Guin. It's a short one. It's a novella. And we are going to stream a bunch of keynotes. And we're doing it in the club only because we've been getting takedowns lately on YouTube. So we've decided, you know what? The club will get the streams. So Paul and Richard and I will talk about the Microsoft Build keynote on May 19th. We'll do Google I/O the following day on May 20th with, I think, Jeff Jarvis and Paris Martin will join me. We're going to have a GizWiz reunion on May 23rd. Dick DiBartolo celebrating his, 2000th episode? Our AI user group went great on Friday. That was a lot of fun. And then in June, it's going to be WWDC. Micah and I will analyze because we're doing it in the club now, we can do not only the big keynote, but also the State of the Union immediately following or take over the channel on Monday. All of these things in the club only. So please consider going to twit.tv/clubtwit and joining the fun. You get ad-free versions of all the shows. You get access to a special Discord just for club members. All those special events. I think it's worth $7 a month, $84 a year. twit.tv/clubtwit. This episode of Twit brought to you by my good friends at ExpressVPN. Going online without ExpressVPN, I don't know, it'd be like leaving your laptop unattended at the coffee shop while you run off to the bathroom. Most of the time, you're probably fine, but what if one day you come out of the bathroom and your laptop is gone? That's why everybody needs ExpressVPN. Every time you connect to an unencrypted network, in cafes and hotels and airports and so on, your online data is not secure. Any hacker on the same network can gain access and steal your personal data. It doesn't take much technical knowledge to hack somebody that way, just some inexpensive hardware. Your data is valuable, right? There's a lot of incentive. Hackers can make up to $1,000 per person selling personal info on the dark web. Well, ExpressVPN stops those hackers from stealing your data by creating a secure encrypted tunnel between your device and the internet. ExpressVPN, it's the one I use, best VPN out there. It's the only one I recommend because they're committed to keeping your privacy private. I use it when I travel to keep up on my shows or watch football. Why ExpressVPN is the best VPN? Well, it's super secure. It would take a hacker with a supercomputer over 1 billion years to get past ExpressVPN's encryption. It's easy to use. You fire up the app, Click one button, you'll get protected, and it works on all devices, phones, laptops, tablets, and more, so you can stay secure on the go. Rated number 1 by tech reviewers like CNET and The Verge. ExpressVPN is the only one I use. Secure your online data today by visiting expressvpn.com/twit. That's EXPRESS VPN.com/twit. And you can get an extra 4 months free when you buy a 2-year package. expressvpn.com/twit. We thank them so much for supporting This Week in Tech. I saved the Elon news for the end of the show. There is actually quite a bit. There is a Tesla whistleblower who says Elon wanted to use ICE to deport her and her team for raising an issue about the brakes. She's a former Tesla engineer, Christina Ballin, who was fired in 2014. She said at that time, Elon threatened the entire team with deportation because they took her side when she brought up a brake safety issue directly to Elon. Now, one of the magic things that Tesla's famous for, Elon has said it many times in meetings and stuff, is my door is always open. If there's a problem, I want you to talk to whoever needs to be talked to, regardless of where they are in the hierarchy, where you are in the hierarchy, even if it's going to me. He sent out an email to the entire company to that effect in 2013. So she saw the email. She said she went to meet with Musk because she was concerned. It was actually a problem that happened in other vehicles too. I think Toyota had a recall because the floor mat could get stuck under the brake. And she felt like that was something that she was worried about with the floor mats on the Model S. She said Tesla had chosen suppliers based on friendships, not quality. So she made a meeting with Elon to tell him about it. She says when she showed up to the meeting, it was instead attended by a lawyer and some large men in uniforms. Probably the security team, but okay. Tesla forced her to resign her position. During that meeting, she says the lawyer threatened to deport many members of her team who are currently waiting on green card applications if she didn't resign. Now, this is just, I got to say, it's just a whistleblower accusation. But I think maybe now, with what we've seen in other circumstances, it starts to ring a little bit more true. For instance, Doge has done quite a bit to help Tesla's business. You actually wrote about this, Kathy, at Tech Dirt.
Not that bit, but about
Tesla. We'll get to that then. Okay, yeah. It's not related. But Tesla did get the feds to weaken the rule for self-driving vehicles. For reporting, a new autonomous vehicle framework would make it easier for Tesla and other companies to research self-driving cars that don't meet all federal safety standards. This is particularly seen as a boon for Elon's promised Tesla automated taxi fleet.
I don't know if this will help people who are already feeling uneasy about self-driving cars if the regulations are knocked down. And I'm sure companies like Waymo that have kind of had to get all those regulations probably aren't thrilled that, now someone like Tesla can kind of swoop in and do away with all that. But
the new rules would allow companies like Tesla, not just Tesla, other companies too, to shield from public view crash details, including the automation version involved in the incidents, the narratives, that's the word they used, around the crashes, on grounds that information like that is confidential business information. Waymo and Zoox will no longer need to report crashes that include property damage less than $1,000. All of this benefits Elon's business. Mm-hmm. And this is the kind of self-dealing I think that's going on. In fact, I honestly think this is what Doge is really about, not saving money. It hasn't at all. Doge is about other things entirely. Now we get to your article, Kathy.
Yeah. There's a whole bunch of things, but yeah, they've been in all the agencies doing all the things. And that's a problem because from where they derive the authority to show up at these agencies and do anything is seriously questionable. And it would be questionable even if they showed up, truly were functioning in an advisory capacity and saying, agency, you really should do this. You should fire all these people. You should cancel all these contracts, this, that, and the other thing. Agencies themselves are still limited in terms of what they can do. And there's this big act called the APA that tends to govern most of this, that agencies can't be arbitrary and capricious in what they do. And he's been going in and getting the agencies to do all sorts of things. And this is creating a lot of litigation because everything that the agency then does is arguably in violation of the law. But a set of these lawsuits are going in because what the agency has done by giving the Doge members themselves access to these databases is also protected by the Privacy Act. Because what the Privacy Act says is government is collecting a lot of sensitive data for very specific things. Like I put in my piece, if you need Social Security benefits, you're going to give the Social Security Administration a whole bunch of information so they can give you your benefits. But the Privacy Act basically says you've got these buckets of information, and that the agencies themselves are required to basically keep that information in the bucket very, very secure.
Kind of siloed, in effect.
Siloed, and siloed even within the agencies themselves, where it's not even within the Social Security Administration. People didn't have, all the Social Security people can have access to this data. It was really metered out in terms of what training you needed to have, what jobs you had, what credentials. And even then you were still limited. So you couldn't get access to too much. And that's how they did business, which protected the data and was also what complied with the Privacy Act laws. And you couldn't go agency to agency with all this data, except under very specific narrow things that do not apply here. So Doge swooping in and coming from outside the agency and getting into these buckets is a problem. And then they're also potentially taking the data out of the buckets and doing other things. Like there's all these articles about the super databases they want to have to help figure out who
in the name of efficiency, right?
In the name of efficiency. So, but there's a number of problems. And in this piece in particular, with the litigation that's about the Privacy Act. And so there's a bunch of those cases. EFF is involved with one, which is challenging Doge's access to OPM, which is basically HR for the government.
The Office of Personnel Management.
Yeah. And then this piece that I wrote the article about is they'd gone into the Social Security Administration. They wanted more access to the Social Security Administration, but there was a TRO that ended up on the books in March. And then the outcome of that TRO was the judge said, you need to tell me if you needed more so I can analyze what you would need it for. And apparently in one of the declarations that followed was, these 4 Doge people need access to not just in aggregate the Social Security data, which was, you don't get access to the identifying data. You get access only to in aggregate where you can't, chase down a specific person. And they said these 4 people need access to the personally identifying information because we need to look for fraud. And the judge said in passing as part of this hearing, she's like, no, you don't get access to the data to then go investigate for a crime. So she denied that.
That's a fishing expedition, right?
It's a fishing expedition. So I thought that was a really interesting thing that came up, and it came up and then was kind of ignored because the rest of the litigation is really about the basics of the injunction and the basics of the Privacy Act claims and things like that. But what she ended up pointing out was the echoes that the Privacy Act has with the Fourth Amendment, because the Fourth Amendment is the big constitutional thing that articulates essentially a right of privacy, although it's not phrased that way, but the people are allowed to be secure in their papers and effects from the government unless the government has probable cause that there's a crime and that they do a search and seizure with particularity. So they still don't get to go on a fishing expedition, and they got to have some good reason to be doing any investigation at all. So what do you have now? You have the government has this data that is collected essentially with the consent of the person, but the person is consented because it's a very limited consent.
We assumed we'd be protected.
Exactly.
Our privacy I mean, and you have no choice, by the way.
But the Privacy
If you want
Act
Social Security, you got to give them that information, right?
Right. And the Privacy Act basically says we are going to make this a viable arrangement for everybody so that they can give this consent and the government can collect this data and do the job providing benefits for the public. So what Doge was sort of saying is, yeah, well, now that we got this data, woohoo, we've got all the evidence of the crime. And they're like, we want to look at we want to violate people's privacy in order to look for the crime. And she kind of points out in passing, no, that's the other way around. You have to have reason to suspect there's a crime, and then maybe you get to look at the data. And really,
it's the same reason the courts prohibit police from saying we would like the location information for everybody who was in the vicinity of that bank robbery last night. That's a fishing expedition.
In that case, I think one of the issues is it just doesn't have the particularity of what they're looking for. Like, you really have to have some sense of who did the thing that was wrong.
What are you looking for?
The probable cause that this person did this crime, and then you get the warrant. Can't say that when it comes to digital stuff, the state of the law is appropriately protective. And these Privacy Act cases really are just dealing with a statutory complaint rather than a constitutional one. But I thought it was interesting to note that colloquy between the judge and Doge, and that echoes of the Fourth Amendment are showing up where this is why we have the Privacy Act. It's so important because the people are supposed to be secure in their papers and effects, to not have the government know what's going on with all their private matters. And it's to make it that, we can give up some privacy to the government without putting ourselves in jeopardy from what the government could do punitively if
have the courts
too much about us.
Have they nipped it in the bud?
Well, in this particular instance, the TRO turned into a preliminary injunction.
Restraining order, yeah.
And now there's a preliminary injunction, and the government is appealing. What I do not know, and then the appeals court asked for briefs on whether the injunction should be stayed. And I actually don't know the latest on that. I forgot to look today, but court listener hadn't updated. I feel like it was missing something. So I don't know what's going on, but I think it's enjoined at the moment. But we'll see I think this is one that's in the Fourth Circuit. So we'll see what the Fourth Circuit does, whether they're going to stay it while the appeal pens or whether that'll hold, but then they'll still do the appeal thereafter. So all this is late breaking and everything is happening. Meanwhile, the one about OPM that I know about that EFF is doing, they just filed their official brief for the preliminary injunction, and I think they either have a TRO already, or I think another case produced a TRO, and they're using that for the moment. So tune in Monday or Tuesday, and it all could be upside down and different. But I did think that what the judge was saying and this issue that surfaced is a really important one that the public should realize. There's reasons we don't want the government poking around in things, and if Doge is doing the poking, that is a problem.
Well, and we talked last week about the story, which has since been suppressed, by the way, I think fully covered up, that Doge, when it got into the National Labor Relations Board, exfiltrated a huge amount of data to addresses unknown, and then gave access very quickly to an account from Russia to the NLRB database. Something weird happened. Unfortunately, the whistleblower that told us all about it has been shut down pretty effectively by CISA, who said, we're not going to investigate, or CERT, we're not going to investigate that. So we just don't know. I think that's the thing that's scariest. We don't know who these Doge guys are, what they're doing. Who is this big balls, and why should he have access to my Social Security information?
Yeah, there's starting to be discovery in some of these cases to get at some of this information, but the ships have sailed.
Don't you feel like the courts move so slowly that at this point, and Trump's moving so obviously so quickly, probably with the intent to bypass any restraint, right?
Well, they are when they play games with the restraining orders, but they are actually abiding by them.
They are abiding by them. Right.
But yeah, this is all very upside down. And yes, the courts are a little slow. And a couple of the conservatives on the appeals courts have been a little slow to appreciate what's going on. But because I think basically injunctions really should have been offered, like TROs really should have happened right out of the gate. And particularly for a lot of the agencies and a lot of the riffing.
There's enough time. You could stop. You could pause for a moment and figure this out. You don't have to do it today.
There was a ton, exactly. There was a ton of damage where bells have been rung, but there is still time to stop some of the other ones. So we'll have to see. This is all playing out. But I think
unring the bell.
Cannot unring the bell. None of this should have happened. None of this has been legal. And let's say, we get through this and we're able to sort of clean up the mess when the dust settles. I think a lot of the wrongness of a lot of what's going on will eventually get addressed, but they're going to cause a lot of damage in the process. And there's a whole bunch of problems at it. Like, are they firing people? Are they just violating their privacy? Are they affecting their payments? Are they making them dead? Because, that was the other thing I pointed out in the post, where I said they're abiding by the injunctions, but how did all those people end up on the dead list? Like, that suggests that they weren't maybe abiding by the injunctions quite as well as they really needed to. So we'll see what happens if there's any adjudication on that front.
It's back in February when all this began, Elon Musk tweeted on X that the IRS's direct file had been deleted. And that day I went out and I mentioned it on the show. I went out and tried it and I was able to set up and start a direct file. Well, maybe Elon knew something because this week the president announced that, yes, they were going to kill IRS's free direct filing for your income taxes, pushing you back to those paid alternatives like Intuit and HR Block. And you got to give me a reason why that was a good idea.
Right. Although I'm sure Intuit was probably thrilled.
It's great for H&R Block and Intuit. TurboTax loves it.
Yep. They've been trying so hard to bury those programs.
They pretended it didn't exist. They, they claimed they had free options every time I pay my mom's taxes through TurboTax. Mm-hmm. Good luck getting it for free.
Yeah, exactly. Exactly.
And I thought, geez, that's great. That's how it should be. That's how it is in most developed nations. Mm-hmm. You have a system that you can file through the tax authority. Mm-hmm. Not here. Nope. All right. I promised I wouldn't get upset. Keep my blood pressure low. Just calm down, Leo. It's going to be okay. Thank you, Abrar Al-Hidi. It's always, you have such a calming voice. I always feel better.
Thank you.
When you're on the show.
Again, coming from you, it means a lot. You all the kind things that you're saying are carry.
I've put many people to sleep in my many years of broadcasting. I don't mean that. You just lower the blood pressure.
Yes, exactly. Yes. We all need to relax a little bit sometimes.
So great.
Yeah.
So great to have you. Senior technology reporter, congratulations on the promotion.
Thank you so much.
At CNET. Who owns you now? ZDNet?
Ziff Davis.
Ziff Davis.
Yeah. Yep. Just try to keep up, okay? I know it's jarring.
Do you work with Jason Heiner? Is he?
Yes. Yeah. He's under the same umbrella as us, which is great because we worked back together in the CBS Interactive days. So
I love Jason.
He's so kind. He's great.
He's a really genuinely good person.
He is.
As are you, obviously.
Well, thank you so much. Well, it takes one to know one, so thank you.
Well, many would disagree, but thank you.
They're wrong.
They're wrong. I am not one to lick a badger twice. I just want you to know.
Right. Never forget. Yeah.
Never forget. Daniel Rubino, editor-in-chief of Windows Central Magazine, a consistently reliable source for Windows news. And it is, Microsoft's gotten a lot more interesting in the last few years, haven't they?
Yeah. I mean, this AI thing, they were in the right place at the right time.
Kidding.
They're a really good place to kind of exploit the technology for,
I love it.
Deployment. So.
Their article on recall is on the front page, windowscentral.com. I thank you so much, Daniel, as always, for your expertise. I appreciate
Thanks for having me, as always.
Yeah.
It's always a good time.
Yeah. And Kathy Gellis, our internet attorney, she writes for Tech Dirt. She do you actually practice, or do you spend all your time writing for Tech Dirt now?
I prefer to do fix it for everyone advocacy, and whether that means writing for Tech Dirt, but I do practice. Like I write the amicus briefs count as practice, and
that's a good point.
And I do some work with other lawyers and other projects. Like I'm working on a memo which gives some advice, and so I can do other projects. But I prefer the writing where I think that's the way that I can make a difference, and so I like flexing that muscle comprehensively, just for whichever audience is best to tackle at that moment.
SCOTUS has been fascinating. What's your SCOTUS report card now? Supreme Court of the United States.
Well, they have created a mess for themselves because they have discounted their own precedent and gotten extremely micromanaging, and also a way that is really unprecedented.
Is that the fight over the word facilitate you're talking about?
Well, so I think I'm referring more to the shadow docket. Like the shadow docket. They don't like calling anything the shadow docket. They think that's not a real thing. But basically, there was always a mechanism that when getting things in front of the Supreme Court was a very slow, selective process. But every so often, something would be an emergency and break and need some sort of quicker attention. And so the shadow docket was always kind of there. But then
it's kind of the emergency docket.
It was the
right?
emergency
for
thing.
Urgent cases.
But then all of a sudden, people were started splatting all sorts of stuff there, and they started answering it. Yeah. So now you're in a position where basically everything, including every case that Trump is litigating right now, and every order that comes out of them, he keeps complaining and taking it up and up and up, and he's taking them all up to the shadow docket. There's like 11 things on the shadow docket right now.
Now, is that will a single justice rule on the shadow dockets, or do they all get involved?
So it kind of depends to the extent that we can discern any viable rules from this. Coming out of, there's a justice who's essentially on duty for every circuit court. Right. But for the and for some stuff, they will either say yes or no by themselves, and usually just for an administrative stay or something like that. But for anything that's more than like a day's pause, they generally end up referring it to the whole court. But there's some question of whether they've really got the internal procedures to make sure that happens. There's some suggestion, and we'll never know, that when it was coming out of the turn the planes around order, that something had gone up to Justice Alito. And did Justice Alito actually refer that to the whole court, or did he sit on it? Because we didn't get the ruling from that court until like 1 a.m. in the morning, which is just, how did that happen?
According to SCOTUS blog, 7 pending shadow docket cases, and 6 of them are Trump cases.
Yeah, and
he's keeping them busy. And of course, they've been very busy, 81 denied applications as well. So they
always turn down a lot of stuff, but at the moment, because they've said yes to so much via the shadow docket, Trump is basically running to the shadow docket on everything. Right. And so my Tech Dirt post earlier in the week was RIP Justice Roberts' summer vacation, because all these cases are going on. All these courts are looking at things, and they're going to turn into something. And are they going to be enjoined? And we've got some time to sort out whether, the rest of the litigation, or are we going to be in emergency mode for everything? And I don't think there's going to, if they aren't enjoined, the plaintiffs are going to run to the shadow docket. But if they are enjoined, then Trump is going to run to the shadow docket. So
it's going to end up there one way or the other. Yeah. Kathy, thank you. I really appreciate the work you do at Tech Dirt. I read it religiously.
And let me wish everybody a happy World Intellectual Property Day for yesterday.
Oh. It was also Independent Bookstore Day. So you could have celebrated both by going out and buying somebody's intellectual property at an independent bookstore.
Yes. I'm very cynical about WIPO's desire to make sure that we have this day celebrating it. But that's why I'm wearing my copyright shirt.
This is WIPO's holiday?
WIPO invented this. And in one of what I consider the ironies of the universe, they decided that my birthday should be the day that is World
happy
Intellectual
birthday.
You're in the lead there. Happy birthday.
Yeah.
So when I throw my parties, I try to get themed IP cakes. I sort of invent them, but like Safeway sold a John Deere cake. So I did that because that celebrated the 1201 rulings. One year I got I had a Campbell's soup can photograph printed on a cake because Warhol was pending. So
that's great.
I try to make a thing.
What was on your cake this year?
I haven't had it yet. So I can't tell you because it's going to be surprise for everybody, but I do know what it will be. So next time you have me on, you can ask me how the cake turned out.
Belated happy birthday, Kathy.
Thank you.
It's great to see all 3 of you. Thanks to all of you who join us every week for This Week in Tech. We really appreciate it. Tell your friends. It's the way to keep up on what's going on in the world of tech. There is a lot. It's been a very busy last few years. We do the show every Sunday afternoon, 2 to 5 p.m. Pacific, 5 to 8 Eastern, 2100 UTC. I mentioned you can't watch live, but you don't have to. It is a podcast. It has been for 20 years now, which means you can download audio or video either from our website, twit.tv. There's a YouTube channel dedicated to This Week in Tech. It's a good way to share clips with friends if you want to turn them on to the show and maybe something that we talked about today. And of course, you can subscribe in your favorite podcast player. Do me a favor, though, when you get there, whether it's iTunes or Pocket Casts or Overcast, please leave us a 5-star review, will you? Tell the world. You don't have to write anything if you don't want to, but just tell the world, as we want to spread the word. We're here every week talking about a very interesting time in tech. Thanks to our wonderful panel. Thanks to you for joining us. Thanks to Benito Gonzalez, our fabulous producer. Lisa Laporte, our fabulous executive producer. And who's editing it today? Is it Kevin King going to be chopping out the bad words? Okay, so thank you, Kevin King, for doing what you do. We appreciate it. And we will see you next time. And now, as I have said for 20 years, now in our 21st year, another twit is in the can. We'll see you next week. Bye-bye.
This is amazing.